This is the personal journal of Peter, name redacted. I am of my own will and incapacity of my position as redacted at the Avaris Corporation, leading an expedition into a newfound parallel reality that will henceforth be known as the Backrooms. Let it be known that I am of sane mind, and as of this writing, I have passed all needed mental health checks in order to be present on this expedition. What I know so far is the Backrooms, despite our most recent discovery, it's always been here. It seems that this pocket of reality was a sort of precursor or a plan to our own world. Travel between the Backrooms and our world is facilitated through a digitization procedure, where we in our own reality are essentially broken down while passing through a specially charged gateway, data transmitted through to this parallel version of our Earth. We will be undergoing this procedure at 800 hours, approximately 2 hours from now. I can't say that I'm a fan of the name, but we've used the popular internet theory of the Backrooms as a placeholder for this area at the moment. It's not quite the same beige, endless hallways that YouTube and 4chan have made it out to be though. For all intents and purposes, the Backrooms have been described as similar to our own world, but trapped in time. It's also noted that things in the Backrooms are more dated, I suppose is the right way to put it. Think of it like a video game render, where modern life is the most up-to-date graphical ability that we have, seeing it in perfect clarity. The Backrooms itself looks like something more akin to a game from the late 90s. Everything has a lower polygon count, like it was rendered in older software. To be quite honest, it has a very uncanny effect, though everything is still functional. Textures on surfaces look as if they're pasted on, yet they retain the same sensation and feeling as in our own world. The few subjects that have been sent through previously have come back with little information, though they're not quite the specialists that are going to be sent over this time. In our team of 5, I will function as a lead researcher. Also joining us are Avaris employees, Julie, Remington, Fitz, and Murray. Last names redacted for privacy. Our aim is to explore the Backrooms and get a good look at what it may function as and report back. Our home base will have a redigitizing setup where we will report back and return home after 48 hours inside the Backrooms. I'll be keeping an updated log of what is discovered. Day 1. 900 hours. So we made it to the Backrooms. To my surprise, it seems to mirror where you are at the time of entering, geographically at least. We entered through the Avaris Research Facility in Manhattan, emerging in the same basement level. However, upon further inspection, we have realized that the Backrooms is not an exact recreation of our current reality. Whereas the current wall color of the Avaris Research Building interior is a dark blue with LED lighting installed in the ceilings, this version in the Backrooms has beige walls with fluorescence. At least it's the approximation of fluorescence. These panels in the ceiling are in fact only an image of the ceiling material, like a texture pasted over a game asset. It has no defining crease or crevice holding it in, but it's simply painted onto the surface, yet it is still providing light. One of the more curious discoveries though involves shadows. It seems that our shadows are, they aren't often visible. It's odd, but as long as you're within a certain radius of the light source, you're fully illuminated. Even facial features don't cast shadows at different angles. It makes me uncomfortable. We're setting up base camp in the research lab. It's much more bare bones in here compared to the one in our reality. Only a couple of desks and the computers are just boxes, crude and fashioned in the style of a PC from the 90s. Very bulky. I'm going to see if I can get any of them to work as we go. The next few hours will simply be base camp tests and making sure that the environment here isn't lethal. Right now, we're wearing containment suits like they do in the hazard rooms back home, and I would rather get out of them as soon as possible. They have a habit of riding up in the crotch. Very uncomfortable. Day 1, 1400 hours. This is an interesting development. We've begun to branch out from base camp now that it's finally set up, exploring the rest of the building finally. The elevators work, though they contain far less floor options than the ones back home. As it is, we only have 3 buttons. 4B, the basement that the research lab is in. Ground, or rooftop. Transport between floors is also odd, shorter than the time it takes back home without stops. Even stranger, it takes the same amount of time to reach the roof as it does to get to the ground floor from the basement, 11 seconds. I can't say I'm sure why, but I look forward to exploring what it could be due to. More curious, although the elevator doesn't seem to be working, we've been able to use the stairs to navigate floors. When we go to the elevator on other floors though, it still only gives these same options. We're able to travel to the other floors but not return to the ones that we departed from. It's all well. It reminds me of the logic in a game. It's strange and, as of yet, defies all reason known before. Other floors feel almost alien in their construct. They're bare for the most part with no equipment or furniture, only an occasional column in the room. More so, they have even more simple textures in the other areas. We've had to bring portable light sources with us as they're all dark with no working source of light, but the walls, ceiling, and floor are nothing but blank white. Not so much even a color as it is just the absolute absence of anything. The lights that we bring in seem to get absorbed by the surroundings, and despite the bright white colors, the rooms are incredibly dim and hard to see. It's eerie, really. You almost feel that you could go through the white walls and fall into a boundless void. At times when observing them, I swear that I could catch noises coming from the other side, just barely loud enough to hear. They were faint and far away, but I swear they sounded like voices. We've yet to encounter anyone living in our exploration of the building, though whether they would be the same type of living as we are is a totally unknown concept as of yet. We could very well be dealing with creatures totally unlike us, or exact copies. Though judging from how this place looks, I question whether they would look more like us or like their own world. Currently, I'm back at camp in order to get food and recharge. We have yet to actually step out into the lobby or the rooftop, and we'll be making that venture next. 1900 hours. I'll be damned. The more I step into this world, the more I question what it really is. I've found things that seem so familiar, yet so highly strange that I don't recognize them. It's like hearing a minute of a song from your childhood and getting that brief smell of nostalgia. I feel like I should be at home here, comfortable in a known environment, yet at all times there's this electrical tingle to the air, like a constant current running through every single part of my body. If we're being honest, I felt uneasy since stepping through the door of the research lab. A knot in my stomach, a deep-seated nausea, it haunts me, yet there's something in my mind that's lulling me to a sense of ease, telling me that it's actually all okay. We journeyed up to the lobby first, leaving right after my previous update. Stepping out of the lobby was interesting. The layout is different from back home, with the welcome desk on the east wall instead of the north. The same beige color scheme is down here, and most odd at the time, the old Avaris logo. The one painted in our lobby is the newest one that started being used in 2020. The one painted in the Backrooms is the logo created in 1992. And if I have my years right, it was retired back in 2003. The shining capital A was painted a bright gold, rays of light around it as it connected to the rest of the letters to spell the company name. It brought back a wave of nostalgia, reminding me of the commercials that I saw as a child when watching cartoons on Saturday mornings, though at the time I had little idea of what went on here. Dark green carpet blanketed the entire room, with the floor-to-ceiling windows the only thing that looked remotely the same. A soft, yellow light was coming through them, though we're unable to see outside or even determine what time of day it is. When trying to look through, the windows are essentially just walls. Nothing is visible through them, just the texture painted over to make them look as though they're reflecting light. I'll say that it activates a certain claustrophobia, thinking that you're going to look through a window and finding that you're simply trapped in a box. I could step out the front door and be in the middle of an ocean for all we know. My fears were, well, I won't say that they were quelled by going up to the roof. If anything, I think I found something that doesn't quite make sense in my mind. Since arriving, I felt that familiar tinge of nostalgia. I grew up in the city in the 90s and spent a lot of time wandering in my younger days. The NYC skyline back then was different, for obvious reasons. And well, getting to the rooftop proved to be all that I needed to figure out just how radically different the Backrooms was from our own world. The sky outside was a pale gray, not a whole lot different from ours back home. The clouds, though, they weren't round, fluffy, or moving at all. Every cloud was separate, a little blocky in the sky, angled in odd shapes. Beyond that, the sky was a visible gradient, not blending into each other but in separate color layers leading all the way to the horizon, which was totally flat. The water around the island was as still as it's ever looked, with not a single wave visible. More eerie though, down below, 40 stories, there was nothing. It was the quietest that I'd ever heard the city. No traffic noise, no planes coming and going from the airport, not even the wind. Just empty quiet, not a thing moving. Overlooking the city was even more concerning. From up here, I had a pretty good view of most of the city. We weren't the tallest building on the island, but it was still clear in every direction. Looking around, I spotted them immediately. The Twin Towers. And Julie started crying when she had laid eyes on them. Can't say that I blame her considering that her father was working there on that day. Died when the first plane hit. To see that building standing again, well, I can't imagine that it's an easy thing to go through. And we returned to the lab after that, deciding to call it a night so everybody could get some rest. To say the day had been overwhelming is an understatement. Everybody's camping out in the main research lab, setting up sleeping bags and portable folding cots. It's not ideal, but it's comfortable enough. I've been messing with the computers in the room as well. It's an odd feeling. The buttons on it are non-existent, yet react when you touch them like modern touchscreens in a way. The keyboard looks more like a sticker on the desktop, but it responds to the same button motions as a typical QWERTY layout. Unfortunately, I'm being kept out of the system as it requires a username and password. The layout reminds me of an old DOS system though, with a very bare-bones interface. I'll keep seeing if I can eventually get through it later, but I don't think that it'll be happening tonight. Day 2, 900 hours. I'm writing that it's 600 hours, but truth be told, I don't feel so sure. The day and night cycles here just don't seem right. I went up to the rooftop again at 7:25, fully expecting the sky to be bright, but it was a deep and dark blue with a moon that looked as if it was a cheap photo hung in the sky. The air was still just as quiet, with no stirs or bustles from anywhere nearby. I stayed up there to drink my coffee, witnessing the sun come up about 5 minutes later, right on the dot at 7:30. At the time it happened though, it wasn't any kind of gradual sunrise, but more like a switch being flipped. The settings changed and suddenly, pop, a bright blue sky and blazing yellow sun hanging at high noon. I stayed up there to finish my coffee before coming back down here almost on the dot at 800 hours. When I turned to leave, however, making my way back to the elevators, the switch flipped again, Suddenly it was completely dark once more. The same plastered moon hanging in the sky and no sign of the sun anywhere. Upon witnessing this phenomena, I went downstairs to grab Julie and Fitz. We got back up within 10 minutes, and for a while there, I believe they genuinely thought that I had gone mad. Can't blame them in this situation, all things considered. We were dealing with an alien world masquerading as our own after all. My theory relied on the day-night shifting every 30 minutes, and I was right. As soon as 8:30 rolled around, daylight was upon us again, basking the low-res city below an artificial sunlight. It was odd. Usually the sun feels warm, even on the coldest days, but there was no change. Just a steady, regular temperature no matter where we went, whether it was on the roof, ground floor, or otherwise. Everything was the same, uniform, constant everywhere. We're now planning the final excursion outside the lobby. I'll give updates when I have a chance to sit down and write them. Day 2, 1500 hours. I don't think that we're alone in here. That's not the least of our problems, though. We made our first excursion outside of the Avaris building, through the lobby 4 hours ago. We prepped everything that we thought we could need, but well, we didn't expect anything that happened. We were kind of surprised the radio worked in here, considering how weird everything else was being. We figured it would be best to have a 3-person team go out while the other 2 set up in the lobby as base camp, relaying any information that we might need. Contact with our reality was non-existent while we were here, so they would basically just be guiding us and recording information that we sent back to them. Fitz, Julie, and I were the excursion team, leaving Remington and Murray to hold down the fort. We set out at first light, right after the changeover had happened. The streets were bright, every single direction bathed in bright artificial sunlight from up above. We were almost hopeful setting out, believing that we were going to find something that could change the world back home. We walked for about 20 minutes, heading in what would be east back home. Not that any compasses worked here, though. We tried using basic navigation equipment, but everything just spun around. Not a hint of true north or anything. We just continued down the same street, though, taking note of what we saw along the way. Everything was, well, empty. There wasn't anybody out there. No wind, no hint of cars or people. Not even a bodega cat on the corner. I saw buildings that I remembered from my youth as we went through. Signs telling of a time long gone. From everything I can tell, the Backrooms is basically trapped in a low-res version of the 90s. If humanity made it to the 90s, though, where the heck is everyone now? All of this had to come from somewhere. It had to have been built, but there was no sign of anyone. Even more, the streets didn't have any hints of clutter or garbage anywhere. It's like all the people just cleaned up and headed out, never to return. About 12 blocks down, everything went to hell. We heard a person's voice, faintly at first, but it steadily grew louder. We finally got to the next intersection and looked towards where south would be when we saw them. A person was shouting, just general screams of, "Hello? Is anybody there?" They sounded human just like the rest of us, and their tone was obviously terrified. Had they somehow stumbled into the Backrooms by accident? There had been stories of people ending up here just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was rare, but there were witness accounts of people disappearing into thin air, and some managed to come back. Supposedly, they would find portals that could get them through. Occasionally, some talk about a savior figure that throws them out of the Backrooms and back into our world, and others report just taking a hard hit and suddenly popping right back into reality. There's no telling how many people have gotten here over the years. We were about to make contact with this person when another voice interrupted them. Before Julie could make a signal to them that we were here, another figure appeared out of an alleyway near them just a few blocks down. The voice was different. It sounded like it was talking through a microphone hooked up to a broken speaker, phasing in and out while breaking up repeatedly. It sounded like it was shouting, "Hello," back at the person. They must have been relieved to hear someone remotely human, so they responded immediately. I could hear them saying, "Oh, thank God," while running right to the figure. That turned into screams of pain quickly when they had touched it. Julie and I watched through binoculars, getting an up-close view. The person was a man, probably in his 30s if I had to guess. Tall, probably about a foot taller than the figure that he ran up to. That thing it was supposed to be human, I know that. It was naked, but it had no defining features to determine what it was. Just the same flesh-colored texture up and down the whole body. It had no hair and the face looked as if it was painted directly onto where the head was. Just a crude drawing of a person's features plastered and stretched over a roundish ball. It wasn't even completely round, but slightly blocky and in what approximated to a half-block, half-oval. The man realized too late when he reached a hand out, touching the figure directly on the shoulder. Anyone that gets twisted and stretched like he did should have an instant death. All at once it was like he got sucked into a singularity, a body folding in on itself from every direction as he screamed the entire time. When it finally shrunk down far enough though, bands of flesh, sinew and blood kept bursting off of it, stretching a few feet into the air before snapping right back towards the center like a rubber band ball. I can still hear his shrieks, begging for help, begging for the thing to stop as it just repeated the same glitchy, "Hello," in front of his mangled body. The ball of flesh floated there for another moment, the man still screaming in terror despite being compacted down into next to nothing by an outside force, before the thing touched it again, this time seemingly absorbing it into its own body. I gagged, trying not to throw up before finally setting the binoculars down. Fitz was staring dumbfounded, but Julie, the poor girl, has been through the ringer for mental distress since we got here. She let out a scream loud and clear, and I saw the figure turn towards us. It knew that we were here. Julie clasped a hand over her mouth immediately, desperately trying to take back what she had done, but it was too late. The figure began moving towards us, shouting even louder in that mechanical voice. It was glitching even harder now, and the form soon started to mimic the voice as it got closer. The figure began bending, limbs stretching and bending in every direction as it walked closer. I say walked, but it was too smooth. More like it was gliding over the ground towards us, legs moving as if it was walking, but the feet never actually touched the ground. It was getting closer though, the guttural, glitching hello speeding up and slowing down in rapid succession, like it was tripping over itself trying to talk. We ran, heading back the way that we came, back towards the Avaris building blocks away. Night came as we began running, causing the streets to go completely dark. Only the occasional lamp provided light, but even then it didn't reach very far, only covering a very small area and leading to pitch black in every other direction. We ran through uncaring for the darkness that engulfed us, only trying to get away from the incessant grating of the figure coming from behind us. I think we lost it about 4 blocks out from base camp, warning them over the radios of what had happened. We kept moving, not daring to let up on our pace, just in case that thing caught back up with us. We had to keep going. We couldn't get caught like that other poor soul did. We busted straight through the door of base camp and shut it behind us. Fitz and I tried moving one of the small desks in the lobby to block off the doors, but found that it wouldn't budge. After a minute, we gave up on that though, instead deciding to just take the elevator back down to the research lab, praying that we would be safe in there. I think that I need some sleep. I still can't process what I've seen in the past few hours and nothing makes sense. God, the portal out of here can't be opened back up fast enough. Day 2, 2000 hours. Something's very wrong here. We were all getting ready to go to sleep about an hour ago, settling into our camp bags after a light meal, when suddenly a blaring noise started coming from an indeterminate point. It seemed like it was coming from every wall all at once, or beyond the walls. Just a jumble of voices, traffic noises, everything you would expect to hear in the city on an average day, turned up to the max volume and then left on all at the same time. We looked all around the floor that we're on, but haven't found any kind of source for the noise. No sign of anything hooked up to an intercom. Heck, no intercoms or speakers anywhere to be found either. It's just there. Like it's blaring out of the walls, the ceiling, and the floor at an insane volume. Practically deafening, and we didn't bring any kind of ear protection with us. Occasionally, amidst the voices and sounds of cars, I swear that I can hear pain screams, just like the poor guy that we saw get folded up a few hours ago. Screams of people begging to be freed from torture, let out of whatever hell they're being held in. Searching for the source has been useless. We're just going to wait out our final hours until they open the portal back up in the morning. If I hold my pillow over my ears, it's a little more bearable. Day 3, 0400 hours. There's somebody else in the building. I don't know yet if they're the source of all the noise or not, but they're watching us from the shadows. I caught a brief glimpse of them while going to the bathroom earlier. They're not human though. They have the head of a bird, a raven I think, but the rest of them is human-like. They know who we are though, and they spoke to me. It was 30 minutes ago. I got up to use the restroom down the hallway. Despite the urinal just looking like a cheap picture on the wall is, well, it works. I don't know exactly how, but it flushes into everything. When I was coming back to the main research lab though, I saw him. He was standing at the end of the hallway just watching me. It stopped me in my tracks for a minute. I thought that I was losing my mind. He just watched me. No sense of fear at seeing someone else here or anything. Like he knew who we were. "You shouldn't be here," was all that he said. And then he raised his hand and the lights went out suddenly. Pitch black. Never seen anything so dark in my entire life. Just like that, he was gone. Nowhere to be found as the lights came back on. I woke up the others when I got back to the room, telling them about what had happened. And while I don't know if they actually believed me, they looked uneasy. The noises were still blaring, this time with an undercurrent of what sounded like soft elevator music, tying together this hellscape. God, I need to get out of here. Just a few more hours. Day 3, 0900 hours. The portal back hasn't been opened. It's supposed to be here, right where the entrance to the lab is. We're supposed to just walk right through back into our own world, but there's nothing. We don't even have a way of contacting the outside world, so we have no idea if it's an equipment malfunction, an issue at headquarters, we don't know. For now, we're just going to wait it out and hope for the best. Maybe they're on a delay or having trouble with calibration. We keep just staring at the doorway, hoping to see the purple glow that means we can finally go home. But so far, there's nothing. Day 3, 1200 hours. Fitz and Remington are dead. After a couple of hours with nothing happening, we decided to try and search the other floors. Maybe something happened in the main research lab and everything had to be moved after all. It was a legitimate possibility. We were trying to find any scrap of hope that we could to get the heck out of here, though we knew it was probably minuscule. So we set out, going to the other floors with their strange white walls and empty rooms. It was eerie and so dark. We even went up above ground to check out some of the floors up there on the off chance that things could have been moved that far. There was nothing though, just empty room after empty room. The noise blaring at us loud and each one like a speaker was positioned right by our ears. It was starting to wear me down, just the constant uproar with no way to get away from it. I think I'm starting to go crazy. Floor 4 was where we stopped for a break after scouring through everything. It was a lot like the others, a mostly empty space with white walls and dark ceilings. No lights to be found but our own. There was one single chair though, just sitting abandoned in the middle of the room. We called time, deciding to gather our energy. Radioing back into base camp downstairs let us know that the portal still wasn't open, so there wasn't going to be anything to go back to. Not yet, at least. Fitz decided that if we were going to take a break that he was going to sit down. He was in the middle of radioing Murray downstairs as he sat, but suddenly went quiet mid-sentence. I turned to see that he wasn't there anymore. Not in the chair, at least. Instead, he was plastered to the ceiling, practically fused with it. Whatever parts of him weren't already smashed to bits by the force that he was flung up there with going through the non-textured material above us. Blood dripped down, puddling below him. As it fell, though, it pooled around the chair. As we looked closer, we realized that every drop of blood that fell onto the chair got pinged off, flung back to the ceiling with the terminal velocity of a rocket, blasting through Fitz's remains that were still fusing into the ceiling above. I've seen a lot of messed up things throughout my life, footage of lab accidents, a lot of bad stuff that happens in this line of work to those who are less than careful. But this was something else. There was nothing recognizable about him, and no telling how in the world it could have happened. I started gagging, getting ready to heave my guts out all over the floor. Remington was definitely the more curious one of us though, immediately jumping up to try and figure out the danger so that we didn't repeat it. Unfortunately, he figured it out the hard way. I think that he was trying to grab Fitz's tag from the remains of his body. He was reaching up to the ceiling and I could see it hanging down from the puddle of goo and bone that was stuck up there, still dripping down. He lost his balance though, falling forward and putting a hand out to steady himself. That hand brushed the back of the chair though, and then he was just gone. It was like an invisible train hit him going hundreds of miles an hour, throwing his body across the room faster than I could even blink. Blood splashed all over the place as the force of moving that fast tore him to pieces, scattered bone and sinew across the room. He hit one of the white voided walls and fell straight through, blood floating into the nothingness beyond, remained spinning like a rag doll the entire time. After a moment, he was just a speck in the distance. I ran out of there, heading back to the research lab in what I thought would be relative safety. When I burst through the door covered in blood, Julie and Murray were already up and ready to go. After seeing the Birdman last night, I think they believed that I had finally snapped and killed the others. It took a minute to actually get my bearings and tell them exactly what had happened. Heck, I still don't think they believed me until I told them that I could show them exactly what happened to the others. They followed me back up and into that empty room, the blood now forming a perfect circle as it pooled with the chair directly in the middle. Fitz was still in the ceiling, though it seemed like he had been absorbed into it more than when I had left. The mass of bone and blood was shrinking, phasing through the blank texture above. I went to the next floor up. I don't know why, but I had this hope that maybe he would be up there, reformed and back to normal by some magic of the Backrooms. No luck. Despite phasing through the ceiling just inches below my feet, there was no sign that any human had ever been there. He was a part of the building now. We returned to base, numb. I tried wiping myself down using some of our bottled water to get whatever blood and viscera I could off my skin. Even when it wasn't there anymore though, I could still feel it. We're just going to wait. No more exploring, no more trying to find our own way out. Now we just sit and wait for rescue. Day 3, 1800 hours. Still no signs of rescue. With Fitz and Remington gone, we have a few more supplies to last the rest of us a little longer. Hopefully it's enough. The noise stopped briefly around 20 minutes ago before starting up after just 2 or 3 minutes of silence. This time though, it's different. Instead of the sounds of a city bustling, it's just a constant loud drone like a plane engine taking off only a few feet away. I've tried making earplugs out of fabric, but it just doesn't work. I can feel the noise in my bones, shaking me to my core. Poor Murray's just sitting in a corner with his hands over his ears at this point, eyes shut tight, begging for it to stop. Not that I can hear him over it. Julie, I think Julie might already be close to breaking. Everything we've been through was enough to get her right to the edge, but rescue not coming for over 10 hours now is the breaking point for the poor woman. She's just sitting on her sleeping bag staring forward with a vacant look. For her sake, I hope we make it out of here soon. Day 4, 0200 hours. We're starting to run low on batteries and power supplies. Soon the last of them will die, leaving us with nothing if the lights go out. I hope they don't. Day 4, 1000 hours. Somehow I managed to fall asleep last night. Not sure how considering how deafening the noise is, but I managed. I woke up an hour ago to find a note left and Julie gone, Murray still collapsed in the corner. Poor guy looked like a shell of his former self. I don't know if it was just because of the noise or the increasing likelihood that we were all going to die here. Can't say that I blame him. Julie's note worried me, just a message saying, "Gone to see Dad." And that's it, no other explanation. I can't just let her wander out there on her own. What if she comes across one of those things like we saw before? I'm going to get her. Murray will stay here and well. I would hope that he'll keep an eye on things and send help if rescue opens the portal. But I don't know how much use he'll be even if they do come for us. Wish me luck. I'll be leaving my logbook here for them to find in case I'm not here when someone arrives. I braced myself, stepping out of the lab and into the elevator all the way up to the lobby. There's no sign that anybody's been through here, not even Julie. Good God, if I can find her, if I can get out of here, then there's no way I'm coming back. I'll cash out all my benefits and leave Avaris. Heck, I'll demand that they pay me to leave, or else I'll break this all wide open to the rest of the world. The street is empty as ever, other than the sound of a jet engine that feels like it's boring into my skull at this point. No time to wait though. Her note said that she was going to see her dad, so I have a feeling that she's heading for the towers. God, walking all this way is going to be a pain. Too bad there's no abandoned cars or anything in here. Not that I would dare use them at this point after seeing what a chair did to my colleagues. But it's nice to dream, right? No matter what, I just have to keep moving. At least my destination was easy to see, so I had little chance of getting lost. I didn't yell for her, knowing that it was probably impossible to hear over the sound going on everywhere. That was going to be a problem for me too, though, since there's no way that I'll be able to hear one of those things if they start sneaking up on me. The most terrifying thing about being out here exposed is the cycle of day and night. One moment it's bright and I can see the entire city around me. The next it's nearly pitch black, with barely any light coming from the lamps lighting the street. It's like all the illumination from them is contained in a single sphere, maybe a 6-foot radius, and outside that there's nothing. No gradient light, not even a speck of visibility. Just darkness in the purest form. I walked for a few cycles of day and night, crossing streets that I was familiar with back home, but seemed like a foreign land here and now. Familiar signage from present day was gone, replaced by faint memories of a time long past, when things were more simple and I didn't have worries like I do now. Honestly, if it weren't for all the terrors that I've encountered, this didn't seem like such a bad place to be. No worrying about others, the constant chase for money to stay comfortable and alive. It could be paradise here. Though I don't think Avaris would ever let it stay that way if they had any say in it. No, as soon as they figured out a safe way to travel between, they would simply sell it off for tourists to come visit. I can see it now, and get a taste of a simpler time, with that awful neon splash that the 90s were known for. They were going to sell nostalgia for a bottom line, even if it meant those that were visiting might come across a gruesome death. I keep moving. I peeked around every corner and every intersection, staying vigilant for any of those things that might show up. Nothing though. Finally, a couple blocks from the tower, I was so close. Up ahead of me, I saw her. The sun had just come out again and she was standing at the base of the North Tower, just looking up towards the building reaching high into the digital sky. "Julie!" I shouted, hoping to get her attention. The sounds had changed again. Now instead of a loud plane engine, we were getting deafening music. Something that sounded like it would play in a mall elevator. Heck, it sounded like it was coming out of a busted elevator speaker even. Tinny and staticky with the worst balancing of any sound mix that I had ever heard. Julie must have heard me through it though, because she finally turned to look as I ran up. "I can't do it," she said. I didn't know what she meant by that, but as I got closer, she ran into the building, leaving me on the street. The music swelled now, buzzing and popping in my ears as I followed her in. The lobby hit me with another rush of familiarity that almost stopped me in my tracks. Tan walls, flags not hanging from them above but painted on to look as if they were hanging up on poles, and the stairs leading to the upper floor were so welcoming, yet so unlike what I remembered when I was a kid. The nostalgia washed over me for a moment, the music growing louder as it almost told me to stay here, in familiar bliss where none of my problems mattered. I swear there was something under the static tone, telling me to just stay still and waste away here, that life outside of the backrooms was nothing to worry about anymore. But then the elevator dinged, bringing me back to reality, and I saw Julie ducking through the doors. "Stop!" I shouted, trying to catch up with her, but she was gone. I hit the button, bringing another elevator down and stepping in. The only options, ground floor and observation deck, appeared on the button pad inside. With no other choice, I followed her up, praying that I made it in time. The rooftop here was much like the one back at the Avaris building, totally devoid of anything that you would expect from being this high up in the air. No wind, no cold air, just the still silent world other than for that music playing. Julie was already standing at the observation railing, looking like she was ready to jump over and head to the edge of the building at any moment, and jump all the way back down. "He jumped," she said as I caught up to stand beside her, tears in her eyes and voice shaking. "I know a lot of people don't know what happened to the family they lost that day, but I saw him on TV. He was one of the jumpers. I never really got to say goodbye." "Hey, I know, was all that I could manage to say. How do you even try to comfort somebody in this situation? I just put a hand on her shoulder, trying to offer any solidarity that I could. We stood there for a few minutes, staring out at the New York skyline. Not that there was much to see. The detail of the city was non-existent, just blank textures pasted onto giant blocks for buildings. The horizon was nothing, only a flat blue, indistinguishable between sky and sea. "What do you think happened here?" she asked now, taking me by surprise. "Honestly, no clue so far. You have any ideas?" I answered. Nothing about this place made any sense to me, and the more I learned, the more I realized that I don't know anything about it. I saw some banners in one of the buildings I passed mentioning New Year's and the turn of the century, she said, muttering now. "If I had to guess, something wiped everyone out." "I guess that must have made those things we saw too," I sighed. Come on, we should get back to the lab in case they open the portal. Hello? A voice from behind us back by the elevators. We both turned, unsure of what to expect. Maybe rescue. God, please be rescue. Hello, hello! There were more voices, immediately making me uneasy and dashing any hopes that I had that rescue had found us. Oh crap, Julie let out a slight gasp. Behind us, those things were starting to pop out of the closed elevator doors, one by one moving towards us slowly. Their painted-on faces stretched over unnaturally shaped heads with wide smiles, staring forward blankly as they steadily approached, closing in on us. More just kept coming out of the elevator, one after another with no end in sight. The cacophony of hellos became overwhelming, almost deafening over the already loud music playing from nowhere. Julie and I stepped back as far as we could, hitting the railing on the side of the building and starting to climb over. There was a little space in between the skywalk and the edge, giving us a little room to breathe. But they were still filling up the rooftop faster than we could think of a way out. There's nowhere to run. She started to sob as they moved forward, reaching long, glitching arms towards us stiffly. Oh my God, we're going to die here. We kept backing up as they moved forward. The stream from the elevators still hadn't stopped, and there seemed to be less and less room on the rooftop as they began crowding together. And two of them touched finally as they began to run out of room, only feet from us, and the sound was like nothing that I've ever heard before. It reminded me of when a dial-up modem would get stuck trying to connect. Just a shrill shriek with the underlying sound like a motor grinding against metal. For a moment it seemed that the background music stopped, but then we were suddenly hit by a burst as the two glitching forms began to merge, digital pixels sliding and corrupting around each other, forming into some new creature. Whatever emerged from the corrupted union, we weren't able to see it. Already backed up to the edge, the blast sent us careening off balance, tipping right over and falling down over the side of the tallest building in the city. I could feel my stomach leap into my throat as gravity takes hold, sending us plummeting down the side. Smooth, textureless windows passed by as we plummeted down, the ground still hundreds of feet away but approaching faster and faster every second. I could barely catch my breath from the air rushing past us, and even as I grabbed at Julie to hold her close, embracing in our final moments, her sobs were muffled by the extreme speed that we were traveling at. This was it, the end. Looking towards the approaching ground, I noticed the street below wasn't empty. 3 figures were standing down below looking up at us as we rapidly came to meet them. From the speed that we were going, I couldn't make out their faces, but they didn't look like the things up above. Could help if finally arrived from base camp. God, what a joke if they finally came to get us while we were falling to our deaths. One of them raised a hand towards us as we approached, now only feet from the ground. I couldn't see if he was holding anything, but he swiped his hand through the air like cutting through something invisible. My stomach leapt from my mouth with nausea as I was suddenly stopped, now sitting on solid ground in one piece, not splattered all over the place like I expected to be. Looking up, I could still hear the incessant hellos and the grinding of a blended dial-up modem as the things began falling over the edge of the roof above. Are we alive? I heard Julie mutter, unsure of what to think. Looking around, I could see the figure standing nearby. The one who raised their arm at us was tall, wearing street clothes like I would see out in the real world. Where their head should be, though, there was a mask that looked like a fox. No, I think it's a jackal. Another person near him spoke. This one dressed mostly the same but wearing a mask that resembled a sloth with a dopey look. I should probably get them out of here, he said, turning to the last of their trio. This one I got a clear look at, wearing all black with something slung over his shoulder, a bird mask covering his face. Oh my God, he was the same one that I saw in the basement the other night. My mind started racing, wondering if they were residents of this world, survivors of whatever had happened here. "Do you mind opening a door?" "Yeah, can you hold the glitches off, Ty?" The sloth answered, turning to the Raven now. "Hey, I told you not to use real names in front of others." Raven grunted, looking up at the glitches falling towards us from the top of the tower. He raised a hand, a small pulse of light flying from his palm and hitting the closest glitch, causing it to evaporate into multicolored pixels. Before they could even hit the ground, he fired off 4 more from seemingly nowhere, vaporizing the ones right behind it. Without even hesitating, he raised his hand at us next. "And besides, they work for Avaris. We shouldn't let them leave." "Okay, Mr. Murder, you know the rules," Jackal mentioned, pushing his arm down before turning to us. "Sorry about him. He's an edgy anime character sometimes. You two the only ones here?" Our coworker's back at the research lab," I stammered out. "He's still waiting on rescue." "Ah, heck. Okay. G, you're with me. Ty, make sure we don't get followed, please," Jackal said, shaking his head under the mask. "You two lead the way, I guess." We started walking back, Jackal and Sloth keeping pace with us as we went quickly, more of the glitches falling from the rooftop. Raven stayed a few dozen feet behind us, taking care of any that made it to the ground in one piece. The sound as they hit the ground was something else, like a million screams ringing out at once before being ripped through space by an unseen force and then slingshotted back. It got loud and then quiet and then loud again as they pixelated and disappeared. "So you're both with Avaris?" Jackal asked as we finally reached the building after strained silence the entire trip. The Raven was no longer visible behind us, but the constant cries of "hello" followed by squeals was still loud, managing to obscure the music playing from all around us. I was helping Julie walk, her legs almost not working from the amount of stress that she was under. We kept going though, covering a surprising amount of ground relatively fast. "What do they know about this place so far?" We're pretty stumped honestly," I said. Jackal nodded to Sloth, motioning him to go in as he raised a hand for us to wait out here. He didn't respond to me for a few minutes, only checking his watch and tapping a foot as Sloth ran into the building. After a few minutes he was back, guiding Murray with a firm hand on his wrist. Sloth led him to us, but I don't think there was anything behind Murray's eyes to recognize who we were. The short time being left here in the Backrooms seemingly broke his brain. "Well, it seems your time in the demo has come to an end. Try not to find your way back," Jackal said. "Demo?" I barely got the word out before Sloth waved his hand at the front door of the Avaris building, causing a purple square of light to take the place of the huge sliding glass. Before I could ask any more questions, Jackal pushed all 3 of us through. A cool breeze hit my face as sunlight and noise of the bustling city washed in. And getting my bearings, I saw that we were back home in the modern Avaris building, surrounded by normal people going about their everyday lives like there wasn't anything different out there. I tried making my way to the elevator to get down to the research lab, but realized that I didn't have my badge with me to get down there. Instead, I sat Mary and Julie down by the reception desk, staggering over to get Maria, the day receptionist, and have her call the lead researcher down. I think she must have been surprised to see me for sure. No doubt I looked rough, but when I asked for Pietro, our boss, by name, her face became even more shocked. "You didn't hear?" she asked me in a hushed tone. "Somebody broke into the main lab a couple of days ago. They murdered Pietro and a couple of the other scientists, then just disappeared into the darkness. It was early in the morning, and all that the camera captured was some strange guy wearing a bird mask before they died." My head was racing. Despite my better judgment, I let out a chuckle, collapsing to the ground in front of reception as people continued to pass right by. They have no idea of what exists just beyond the border of our reality. No idea that we're just the latest update to the demo. I don't think I'll ever go back, but I think my time at Avaris is over anyway. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, we talk a lot about scary things around here, but sometimes the hardest thing to face isn't what's hiding in the dark. It's admitting when we need a little help. And BetterHelp's 2026 State of Stigma report really stood out to me. They surveyed 2,000 Americans and revealed that 85% of Americans believed getting support is wise. Yet 74% say that society discourages people from doing so. That's a pretty big gap. Most of us agree there's nothing wrong with asking for help, but a lot of people still hesitate because of how they think they'll be perceived. Maybe the best way to change that is simply encouraging the people we care about and reminding them that it's okay to reach out when they need it. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched with a therapist, and if the first match isn't the right fit, you can switch at any time. And don't let stigma stand in the way of support. Start therapy with BetterHelp. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/Mr. Creeps. That's BetterHelp.com/Mr. Creeps. Have you ever dreamt that you were in an arcade of some sort? It's an odd question, I know, but think back. Search through the memories of your dreams. Some find this easier than others. Maybe it wasn't an arcade, but a strange, vast, repeating place of some kind. Rows of hedges in an unending garden, empty bathroom stalls beyond count, perhaps a deserted mansion. Picture the place in your mind's eye now if you can. What did it look like? It's always an arcade for me. The games stretch on and on and on, machines beyond count, all cramped closely together, shining brightly in the relative gloom of the hall. Sometimes I try to play them, but when I do, I always find that they are peculiar, unnatural. The controls don't work the way that they're supposed to. They don't make any sense. I get stuck on the menu screen, and no matter how hard I try, how desperately I want to play the game in my dream just once, just to try it out, to see what it's like, I just can't get past that menu. Ever. It won't let me. Are there any windows in your dream place? There are never any windows for me. If I was a betting girl, I would say that if you have had such a dream, if you recall a place similar to the one that I have described to you, then I would also guess that while you were there, it was empty. Perhaps not entirely so. Maybe you started off with a friend or two, a couple of strangers dotted around. But what happened to them? Did they disappear, vanishing one by one until it was only you? Only you in this strange and sprawling place. This place that should be bustling and busy, full to the brim with excited people. This place that is somehow at once both otherworldly and the most basic, simplistic world that you could imagine. Like a template, a default map drawn from the brain stock of places and laid out glitchingly into the dreamscape. If you have never had such a dream, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, well then I envy you. Because if I was like you, then I would not be experiencing the same uncertain, nostalgic terror that I feel as I stand here right now, in the arcade, for real. So, hey, my name is Melody. I'm 14, though I turn 15 in just over 2 weeks' time. My parents want me to have a party. I say no, obviously, but they've been piling the pressure on, and it's really starting to get to me. They mean well, I guess. I think they just want to see me being happy and social or whatever, but I don't think that they get it. I'm too old for a party. I don't want a party. I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want to arrange things, and I'm tired of trying to explain this to them. What if no one showed up? Or worse, what if only 1 or 2 people showed up? Then I would have to hang around with them awkwardly until it was time for them to go. No way, no thank you. They actually had the nerve to suggest bowling. Bowling. It's such a cringingly uncreative, basic NPC activity. It actually made me laugh when they brought it up. I'm not going to ask around my class to see if anybody wants to go bowling. I'm not 10 years old. But they've been pretty insistent. They've started asking questions about why I never have friends over and why I never go out. About why I always want to be alone in my room. These are difficult questions that I really don't care to try and answer, so I've given them some ground. It's early evening and I'm walking to the local arcade. They have a bowling alley there. I told my parents that I would check it out and that I would think about it. That was a lie, of course. I'm not going to think about it. I've already thought about it. But since I'm out of the house, I may as well walk to the arcade anyway. It gives me something to do. I haven't been there since I was a kid. My shoes tap lightly against the dusty sidewalk and I reach into my pocket for my phone. It's Friday and Jason usually posts to his story this time of the week. He didn't post anything yesterday, so today's gotta be the day. I've been checking every hour or so with growing frustration. Nothing yet. He's so cute and he knows it. He sits in front of me in English and I often overhear him talking about music with his friends. He's gotten really into Aerosmith lately, so I've been listening to all of their albums one after the other. I'm not a huge fan, honestly, but I'm getting to know the songs as best as I can. I don't know why, really, just in case, I suppose. Jason barely even registers that I exist, obviously. I keep working up the courage to send him a message or something, but boys are supposed to make the first move, aren't they? I don't even know what I would say. Would a hey be enough? I feel like it wouldn't. He probably gets dozens of hays every day. And then I would just be paranoid how to act around him since I wouldn't know whether he had seen it or not. But I realized suddenly that my phone isn't in my pocket. I checked the other one. I checked the ones that I never keep my phone in. I look back the way that I came across the street and under an orange and shimmering sky. It's in my room. I left it on the charger. I swear under my breath. I forget it. I'm basically at the bowling place already. No point in going back for it now. And so I head on. Jason can wait. The place looks pretty empty tonight. I make my way through the empty parking lot and I take a hold of the handle, ready to pull the door to the building open. The door itself is translucent and I catch in it an unfortunate glimpse of my own reflection. I grimace and I tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, averting my gaze and tugging the door open. I read an article somewhere that said human faces are supposedly more or less attractive based on how symmetrical they are. I don't know how reliable the article was, but I didn't check. I didn't need to. My pre-existing insecurity had been fed, and the damage was done. I don't have a symmetrical face. I have freckles and not in a cute way. I mean loads of freckles and there's visibly more on one side of my face than the other. I hate it. One day they'll invent a cosmetic procedure to get rid of them and I'll be old enough and I'll have enough money to pay for it and I'll be the first new customer in line. But until that day I have to live like this. I also have heterochromia, which means that my eyes are two different colors. One is blue and the other is a kind of light brown or green. And no, I don't care what you're thinking, it doesn't make me beautiful. I hate it, I'm not an anime character. I just want to be normal. My cheeks flush super easily as well whenever I get stressed or embarrassed or angry, which is another humiliation that I get the privilege of living with. It's no wonder that I'm not worth Jason's time. My upper arm itches suddenly. I scratch it and wince, biting my lip as I step into the building. I had hoped that on a Friday evening the place would be busy, makes me less conspicuous and less obviously alone. But as the parking lot had foretold, it's dead. The carpet in here is blue with a little repeating red, yellow, orange pattern across it over and over. A little ways ahead is the main desk. The only employee working on it is a girl a few years older than me in a green cap, messing around on her phone. She hasn't even noticed me come in. Beyond the desk is the actual bowling alley. There's like one small family on one of the far lanes, and to my right, the wall curves around, leading into a little arcade of sorts. There's a DDR machine and a House of the Dead, a couple of others too. This was stupid. Why did I come in here? I could have just turned around and gone home. I sigh. I'm in now. I may as well look around. And so I do. I walk as normally as possible, trying not to draw attention to myself. I don't know why. I'm not doing anything wrong. I just don't want anybody engaging with me, I guess. The lighting in here is low. The beam lights overhead hum and buzz softly. It's kind of unnerving, actually. Places like this are supposed to be full of people. When they're like this, though, it just feels strange, alien. You may have experienced this sensation if you've ever stayed overnight in an airport when nobody else is around, or if you've had to set up for or clean up a place where folks like to gather in large numbers. As I walk amongst the arcade games, I realize in the moment that they don't seem to be all that inviting. They're failing in their most basic task as arcade machines. They don't seem fun, they seem demanding, desperate even. I watch a row of lights flicker around the edge of one such game. Neon buttons flash pleadingly in the relative shadow of this corner of the building. Tragic. A sudden, distorted scream makes me jump and spin around in fright, but it's just a stupid sound effect from House of the Dead. I'm an idiot. I blush and glance around to make sure that nobody saw, but there's nobody even nearby. I can't even see the girl behind the desk from here. My heart rate begins to steady and I shake my head. This is so dumb. What am I doing? I'm gonna head to the bathroom and then go home. I need to come up with a good excuse for my parents. I'm trying to avoid looking up at my reflection as I wash my hands, but I can't help it. A quick glance up. That's all that it takes. I scowl and irritably brush that loose strand of hair back behind my ear and I push out of the ladies' door. And that's when I see it. A door, a new door. One that doesn't really make sense. The bathrooms are tucked away in a side corridor off from the modest arcade. But I swear that I hadn't seen this particular door on the way in. I would have remembered it, surely, based on how strange it was. But then again, maybe not. At first glance, it doesn't seem all that unusual at all. It's the same size, shape, and style as all the other doors in this little corridor. But this one seems to be both open and closed at the same time. I take a curious step closer. There is only one doorway and the door is quite clearly closed. But then attached to the very same hinges, there's another door, one which is held wide open. What? I take another step closer right up to it, and I can't say why exactly, but my heart starts beating fast, really fast, like it did before. My lips go dry, but I can't turn away. There's something going on here, I know it, something secret. I shoot a quick glance behind. This is so unlike me. What if I'm not supposed to go back there? I might get in trouble. But these thoughts don't stop me from putting a hand on the door, the closed part, and they don't stop me from pushing through. And now you're up to speed. I told you at the beginning where I find myself now. A massive, sprawling arcade. Row after long row of unfamiliar games all stacked tightly together. Glittering, shimmering lights in an otherwise gloomy hall, though to call it a hallway would be an insult. The roof is low, but the walls are far. They curve off at strange angles in the distance, and it is obvious that there is far more to the place that I cannot see from my current position. The walls are the same shade of deep blue. There is a very simple repeating geometric pattern of red and yellow that follows along around the wall's base. There are no windows, and there are no people, and I hate it. I can feel myself start to hyperventilate. My arm stings. I squeeze it and I turn to head back through the door. I push through it, but there is no way out. It doesn't lead anywhere. It just leads to a single cubicle restroom. A toilet to sink, that's it. There's no corridor. Shocked, horrified, I look all around the room. But it's tiny, it's obvious. There's no way back. I turn and stare at the expanse before me as my blood pounds in my ears. The machines whir, and the lights flicker in the distance. The gentle yet ominous buzz of the endless arcade is all that breaks the silence. That and my labored breathing. I close my eyes and I take some deep breaths. I count to 5, and then I turn and push through the door again. But beyond is still only the little bathroom. I take a step back and I look both ways along the wall. The deep blue wall with its repeating pattern of red and yellow lines. There are no other doors. And I swivel and clench my fists, forcing my fear into something else. Anger. Yeah, anger will do. What is this? I shout. Something that I instantly regret. I lower my voice, my heart pounding. What is going on? Is this a joke? Is it like a prank? Because if it is, it's not funny. I summon the courage to raise my voice one more time. It's not funny. But I receive no retort, no answer, nothing. Alright, fine, I'm pretty sure that I'm not dreaming. So there's some real weird stuff going on here. Let's see what it has to offer. Screw it. I say that last part out loud. Yeah, screw it. Still very much on edge, but with my breathing coming under control, I flick my hair from my face and clench my fists, marching across the carpeted floor and down a couple of small steps and up to the edge of the colossal arcade complex. Some of the machines are shorter than me, some are taller, but they are all stacked tightly and claustrophobically together in long, long rows, glittering in the gloom, whirring, beeping and jingling. Walking down one of the rows, I can't help but shiver. It's not cold in here, but the déjà vu is way too much. I feel like I've been here before. Not in this exact place perhaps, but close. I'm trapped in a place like this one in one of my reoccurring dreams. Sometimes I find a mirror in my teeth that start to come loose. Sometimes I end up in an exam hall and I realize that I failed to study for my finals, and it's time to take them. Everyone else is nearly finished, but I still haven't even started. I don't know what to write. I shake my head and tighten my jaw, forcing the bitter memories away. The dreams with Jason were the ones that I always hoped for, though they were far more painful in the mornings when I woke up. One of the machines laughs at me. I stop and turn to my right. It giggles and another strange, distorted, pre-recorded laugh warbles into the mix of the surrounding sounds. I don't recognize it. It looks like something that you would find in Japan, Tokyo or something. It's got a huge wheel attached to the top, only half visible. The rest hidden behind a pale blue flickering screen. Curious tubes and buttons adorn the front, and a panel covered in handprint sensors sticks out from the left. I've never seen anything like it. I have no idea how you're even supposed to play. I step closer. There's some text on the flickering screen. It's small though. Squinting, it looks like English. But every time the screen glitches, the screen quality changes. Some of the letters stop looking like English. They stop looking like anything. It's constantly shifting, changing. I can't read it. I don't see anywhere to put money in, and so I press one of the buttons. The screen changes to yellow and the handprints alight. A jaunty, unsettling tune plays from the machine as the wheel starts to spin, slowly at first and then faster and faster. Most of the buttons are smooth circles, but one of them is a kind of rectangle shape, silver and sharper edged. This one lights up red for a second and I slap it instinctively. The machine rewards me with a chime of success, and the wheels start spinning faster. I wonder if I'm supposed to do anything with the handprints. I press my own hand up to one of them and the machine makes a noise, but nothing seems to happen. The silver button lights up red again and I smack it. Again I smack it. Again and again. The wheel keeps spinning faster and there seems to be instructions flashing on the screen, but I still can't make them out. Whenever I try to focus on the words, they change and disappear. The loudest chime so far sounds excitedly, and the rectangle lights up red. I smack it hard, but nothing happens. Did that one count? I press it again, but still nothing. Is the machine jammed? I keep pressing it again and again in frustration, but I get no more reaction from the machine. A disappointed burst of notes plays from the arcade game, and one by one the buttons go dark. The wheel starts to slow, until it grinds to an eventual halt, and it fades into silence, and then it seems to shut off completely. It won't respond to any further touches. Weird. I force myself to detach, to laugh and to move on, but it comes out sounding hollow. I try a few more of the machines along my way and they're all totally unique, and none of them make sense. I don't understand a single one of them, and I can't work out how to play. It's maddening, but whatever. I don't care for arcade games anyway. I used to when I was a kid, but not anymore. I march on, my anger growing. What did I do to end up in a place like this? This matrix glitch. The lights above and around me flicker. I notice some of them in the far distance go out. And up ahead, I can see an end to the arcade. The walls are still far, sticking out in strange places, jutting into the complex at weird angles, all with that same curious pattern painted across them. Deep blue, and then in the lower quarter, the bottom fourth, thin red and yellow lines, intersecting in the same way over and over again. Very 90s. As I leave the sprawling corridors of arcade machines behind, I find myself in what seems to be an empty theater complex. No desks, no popcorn stands. It feels like I'm in the lobby, I guess, but I'm not sure why. I don't even know why theater sprang to mind. There are no cardboard cutouts, no movie posters, nothing like that. Just open floor and wall. There are some more doors further ahead though, so I head towards one. The walls that stick out cast long rectangular shadows across the dark floor. I pass one such wall and something catches my eye. I start in terror. There are people in the corner. Jesus! Heart pounding, blood cold, I stare at the figures. There's 3 of them just stood in silence in the shadow of the wall. Hello? I call out to them cautiously. No response. I gather my courage and slowly make my way over to them. They're standing still, no movement at all. And as I approach, I realize that they're not really people at all. I mean, I recognize them, but they aren't real. They're made of wax. Statues. Life-size statues of 3 of my classmates. One of them is Jason. The others are 2 of Jason's friends from his clique, the inner circle. 2 girls, Jess and Kate. What's going on? It's unnerving how lifelike they are, but they stand still, unblinking and not breathing. They're such attractive people even in wax form. I feel a flare of jealousy rise up as I look them over. I move in real close to one of the girls, to Jess. She's been all over Jason's Instagram story lately. They spend a lot of time together. He's probably going to ask her out soon. Another burst of jealousy floods me, accompanied by rage this time. I know that if I could see myself, my cheeks will have turned a deep pink. making my freckles all the more obvious. Jess's skin is completely clear and totally smooth. I step forward suddenly and push the statue over with all of my force. She topples to the ground, and as she hits the floor, her top half disconnects from her bottom half. She's still held together by her clothes, and she lays awkwardly, staring up at the ceiling, expressionless. I pant. I'm embarrassed, but I have to admit, it actually felt kind of good. I turn to Jason. I've never been this close to him before. I've never had the chance, except for that one time in chemistry when the teacher sat me next to him by mistake. That was an amazing day, but I didn't get to look at him the way that I can now, drinking him in. Why don't you pay attention to me, Jason? I know that I'm not pretty enough for you, but please, why don't you just give me a chance? I put a hand on his face and it feels cold, like wax. Oh, probably because it is wax. I pull back. God, I'm such a creep. What am I doing? Yeah, it's a good thing that nobody's here to see me. But these statues, were they made for me? I mean, they must have been. Were they placed here knowing that I would find them? I need to know more. I look down for a second time, down at the broken statue of Jess splayed awkwardly against the carpet. I start to feel a little bad for it. I make a movement to bend down and to try and pick her up, but as I do so, I notice something in the corner, tucked in shadow beneath the two walls. A corner of the carpet has come away from the floor. I'm not sure why exactly, but a sudden gnawing urge to go and pull it up a bit further overcomes me, and so I walk over into the corner, and I place a hand on the upturned piece of carpet, tugging and pulling it across the floor and away from the wall. The sound that it makes is troubling, but also somehow incredibly satisfying, like a slicing sound. I look underneath it and a wave of nausea washes over me as I take in the dozens of thick, slimy, sticky red strands connecting the carpet to the flooring below. The way they stretch, the way they quiver as they resist my pulling. It's sickening. It's unnatural and disturbing, but a part of me wants to keep pulling and tearing and to see how far I can get it. A sudden sound, a half clank, half rumble, and like an electrical power outage of some kind, echoes through the air from behind, and I drop the carpet back down in fright. I spin around, and in the distance above a far-off cluster of arcade machines, the lights above have gone dark. The surrounding lights start to flicker more rapidly, and then they too go dark with the same noise. A sudden pain in my upper arm makes me wince, and I clutch a hold of it instinctively. I press and trace my fingers over the bumpy lines, and I can feel it through my shirt, and I can hear a groaning. Not a metallic groaning like the noise from the lights that are shutting off, but more human. A human groan. And I hear a banging down one of the corridors. I can't tell which one, there are too many, but it sounds angry, and it's getting closer with every second. It's heading this way. I panic. I shoot one last look at the wax statues, and I sprint on further into the complex. I run through the complex, not looking back, my sneakers loud against the carpet as I watch the doors around me rush past. They all look exactly the same. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I head towards one at random, yanking it open and stepping through, pulling it tight shut behind me and catching my breath. It's dark in here. Not pitch black, but it takes about a minute for my eyes to adjust with the help of the narrow strips of light coming through the edges of the closed doorway. I can see a corridor of sorts, and so I follow it, and the wall to my right gives way, revealing row after row of empty seats, theater seats. I seem to be in one of the screen rooms. The screen itself is at the far end of the room against the back wall. It flickers. Strange, unreadable white text shimmers and disappears in the center. It's difficult to focus on. I pause and glance back to the doorway. I wait for a few more minutes until I'm confident that the source of the noise isn't following me, but I hear nothing, just the soft rumble of the screen and the speakers, unseen. Cautiously, I settle into a seat in the aisle. The screen flickers, and as if on cue, a movie starts to play. I use movie in the loosest sense of the word. Disjointed stills and strange panning shots of places that I sort of, but don't really recognize play out. All empty. There's one of my school. I recognize the lockers and the wallpaper and the classroom doors, but the halls are all wrong. They're shaped incorrectly. They travel in directions that don't make sense, and there are staircases in places that there shouldn't be. And then it shows my street. Empty, no cars, no people, and the camera draws up towards my front door, and I squirm, a growing sense of unease attacking my senses. The view pushes through the front door, but the house is empty. Completely hollow between its walls, inside is only a gaping hole, fitted with metal and surrounded by rock, like the entrance to a mine shaft. I don't want to go down, but I can't look away. My knuckles turn white as I grip the arms of the chair. The camera falls down into the mine shaft. Deep it goes, deeper and deeper under the ground and down into the darkness, through narrow, winding tunnels and under trembling beams, deeper and deeper below the earth. And suddenly there is Jason. The screen shows two pictures at once, flickering between the two, Jason looking directly at the audience and the dark rush of the tunnels. Muffled speech comes from the speakers, but it isn't synced with Jason's lips. It is his voice, though. "Disgusting," he says, eyes cold. "She makes me feel sick. She wonders why I don't talk to her. I can barely stand to look at her." I sink lower in my seat. I can't turn away, I can't move. What does she think she could possibly offer me? To anyone? Stay in your room, you freak. He's not talking about me, he's not talking about me. He hasn't said my name, it could be anyone else. He hisses through his teeth. No one wants to be with you. No one wants to be around you. You are nothing. Not me, he's not talking about me. Not me, not me, not me. He opens his mouth to talk again and silent, sharp words strike out from his lips. The sync is still off, so I have a second or two before I hear them spoken through the speakers. And I break. I can't allow myself to hear him say my name. I can't bear it, I just can't hear it. And so I slam my hands to my ears and tear myself from the seat, running down the aisle through the darkness and back through the door to the main lobby. I slam the door shut for the second time and slump back up against it, allowing myself to slide down until I'm sitting on the floor, clenching and unclenching my fists, chest rising and falling. This place is twisted. My arm throbs and I relent with a low sigh, carefully peeling up the sleeve of my shirt and allowing myself to take in the sight of the multitude of crisscrossed scars that cover the skin, some fresher than others. Raised bumps, lines, and marks starting near my shoulder and coming down the side of my arm almost to my elbow. One of the fresher scars is split, and a trickle of blood leaks along my skin. I watch it leave a shiny red trail in its wake. "Looks painful," says a voice to my right. I scream and throw myself in the opposite direction, twisting and turning to look up at its source. A boy stands there watching me curiously. He looks about my age, but I'm not sure if he's even human. His head and his face look realistic, but his skin can only be some kind of silicone mask, as his body, arms, legs, and torso and all is clearly robotic. He wears no clothes, and the silver machinery, the narrow bars and gears that keep his metal body together, is all visible. "What are you?" I scream at him, eyes wide, and he cocks his head. "Rude," he says, folding his metal arms with a series of clicks and a strange whirring. "My name is Lucas, if that's what you mean." I stare up at him. You scared me." The robot gives me a guilty half smile. Oh, sometimes a good scare can be necessary. It might be just what we need. I grimace. What the heck kind of name for a robot is Lucas anyway? He unfolds his arms and shrugs, and then leans towards me and offers me his hand. It's just my name. I bat it away and stand up by myself with a grunt, cheeks flushed. I brush my hair from my face. And you come with this place then, do you? I ask him, looking him up and down. He looks vaguely familiar, his face at least. Is that real hair? I point to the scruffy brown mop atop his head before he has a chance to respond. He laughs and it sounds human. Yeah, I guess I do. And the hair is just hair. I don't know if I grew it or if it was made, so I'm not really sure. He pauses and cocks his head again. I know that it's unsettling in here. I'm sorry about that, really I am. I can give you some help if you want it, he says softly. Advice and such. A flash of irritation flares up inside me. And what makes you think that I need you? Creepy robot that just appears out of nowhere. No offense, but I mean, what am I supposed to make of you? Of all this? Is it a dream? Is this place real? Lucas looks at me sadly. Oh, it's not a dream, Melody, not wholly, he says, and it's far more real than I would prefer. The implication that I'm supposed to be impressed or concerned that he knows my name irritates me further, and while I am a little unnerved, I'm not going to show any weakness. And what, you're supposed to be my spirit guide or something? I snort and turn and head further down a strip of corridor that runs away from the lobby. I call back over my shoulder. I'm going this way. You're welcome to come along if you want. Doesn't make a difference to me. Hey, the robot calls out. I hear the mechanisms in his legs clanking as he catches up to me. Wait up, all right. He falls into step alongside me and we walk together in silence for a while. Maybe 10 minutes or more down long, strange corridors, all with the same dark blue walls with the little repeated pattern of red and yellow across the bottom. I open some doors along the way. They all seem to have theater screens behind them, though the screens themselves, if I'm in a position to see them from the doorway, only show that curious, unreadable text. We find ourselves eventually in a wide and open hall. Up a couple of small steps on a podium in the middle is a tall, towering cylinder, full of clear water and descending through and above the ceiling. Bubbles rise up steadily from the base in a continuous stream, disappearing eventually out of sight. I hear a clicking and a whirring of gears as a robot boy stirs beside me. It's quiet in here. Softly he speaks. So, do you want to talk about those cuts on your arm, Melody? He asks. No, I do not, I reply, walking away from him. It's really none of your business, no matter what you are. I'm the perfect person to talk it through with, he says, following me. I'm a robot. You're not convinced that I'm even real anyway. Just humor me. What do you care? I don't, Lucas replies, which does actually make me stop. I turn to him. I'm just curious is all, he continues. Not having skin, I don't really understand the appeal. I chew my tongue, taking the robot in. He really is a strange-looking creature in his head. I swear that I've seen that face somewhere before. Fine, I say quietly, sighing and sitting down onto one of the raised steps, chewing a little on the corner of my thumbnail. The boy sits cross-legged on the floor in front of me with a series of clicks and metallic taps. I can feel myself beginning to flush and I look away. Not even human and I can't look it in the eye. Pathetic. It's just, it feels good kind of. Like I'm actually in control of something, you know. Like, screw you, universe. I have the power to do this and there's nothing that you can do to stop me. It's stupid, I know. The robot says nothing. It calms me, it helps me focus kind of. Plus, I hate the way that I look and it feels good to punish my body, I suppose. I can feel my face burning. I still choose not to meet the robot's hauntingly human eyes. He speaks. Huh, that's interesting. So why doesn't everybody do it? I get angry. Well, because it's stupid and dangerous. It's an awful, awful thing to do. I'm not an idiot, okay? You don't have to treat me like a kid. I know that I shouldn't do it, but I'm not hurting anybody else, so what difference does it make? What do your parents say? Are you joking? I haven't told them, obviously. They'll think that I'm insane. They wouldn't understand. I can feel tears brimming in my eyes, which only makes me angrier. I swallow and I try to hold them back, wiping my face desperately to prevent them from spilling down my cheeks. They'll hate me. They'll stress out about what they did wrong and how they failed me. They can be real intrusive morons sometimes, but they don't deserve that. The robot cocks his head with a little click but says nothing. The air turns cold all of a sudden. Worse than cold, actually, biting, like I'm surrounded by ice. I shiver and gasp at the sudden drop in temperature, and a cloud of breath forms and disperses in front of my face. The lights above begin to flicker. A groan, a great creaking, metallic and alien echoes from beyond, and a thin, lightning-shaped crack appears in the room's centerpiece, the great glass cylinder. The robot rises quickly to his feet, looking up and away at the ceiling, brow furrowed. What's happening? I ask, but he doesn't answer all at once. The lights at the far side of the room go out with a low and echoing boom. The floor and walls below it are plunged into darkness. It's time to go, the robot replies, unless you don't want to listen to my advice, that is. Another light goes out a little closer and I decide to listen. Fine, I say. Let's go. I'm listening to you right now, alright? Let's go. Something about the darkness, it scares me, it terrifies me in fact. If I squint, I can just about see the carpet at the edge of the darkness starting to curl, starting to come unstuck from the wall, leaking, that same thick sticky red substance oozing out from it. It makes me feel all sorts of strange and conflicting emotions, but right now fear is the strongest. Where do you want to go? The robot asks. What kind of question is that? Onwards, I guess. I need to know more. I need to understand what this place is. It was made for me, I'm sure of it. Lead me on. And then, please, I add. And so the robot grabs my hand and he drags me on down a nearby corridor. And together we run as the lights go dark in the distance behind. My heart races as the robot pulls me through the corridor. My heavy breathing is like steam in the cold air. There's something terrifying about the darkness, about the lights that fail and shut off. It feels like there's something in the dark hiding and lurking. I can't shake the sensation that I'm being followed, that something is watching me. Eventually though, the temperature starts to rise back up, thankfully, and it hits a more comfortable level. We come to a stop in a wide hall and I double over, my hands on my knees as I gasp for breath. The robot boy seems in a much better condition, but even his metal chest rises and falls dramatically as he looks back the way that we came. Oh man, I say through breaths, standing and stretching and wincing, realizing that another one of my fresher scars is split. Oh, my shirt's going to be ruined. I'll have to throw this one out before my parents see it. I take in my surroundings. We're in a bowling alley of some kind, a massive one. There are more long, shiny lanes than I've ever seen before, all in one place. But there are no pins, no racks, no bowling balls, no desks, no ball return machines, and all the scoreboard screens are either dead or made up of flickering pixels. The colors alternate between a bright blue and softer tones of brown and green. This place is insane. I mutter, standing up and starting to walk around. Thanks for getting me away, I call back to the robot boy. But you didn't have to drag me. You could have just pointed the way. And what's the deal with the lights anyway? They freak me out. Are we alone in here, or is there something else? He doesn't answer. I stop and turn back to him, anxious. Is there something else in here with us? Trying to keep my voice level. Yes, of sorts, he says after a beat. Well, what is it? Are we in danger? I don't know exactly, but yes. I clench my jaw. Where do you want to go from here? He asks. I don't know what you mean. This is my first time in this place, but I want to continue exploring, obviously. I'm not a coward, no matter how much it tries to frighten me. This is the most exciting thing to happen to me in my entire life. I don't care if it's dangerous. Robot Boy says nothing. I push my hair behind my ear and I look around. Aside from some raised platforms, the room is mostly flat. I step onto one of the smooth, polished lanes and walk down it to the gutter at the far side. It feels longer than the lane of a normal bowling alley. Not that I've ever actually walked all the way down one of those though, to be fair. I get down onto my hands and knees once I reach the end and I peer into the darkness. It's not the scary kind, not like the total room-filling darkness that clanks and grinds out from the failed beam lights. The dark back here is gloomier. This is an ignored and forgotten place. Irrelevant, quiet in its shadow. It makes me feel sad. The sound of a monstrous tearing assaults my ears and I scramble to my feet. One of the lanes in the far distance is coiling back on itself. Splintery wood is shooting up and out towards the ceiling as it does so. Those familiar dark red sticky strands below it stretching and bursting, splitting grotesquely as the lane pulls away from the flooring. Another lane much closer this time, a few rows to my right, starts doing the same. I watch it curl back sickeningly, watching the splintered wood fly out into the room in dangerous directions, and the floor below me trembles. I start to run, not at full speed for fear of slipping on the smooth surface, but fast enough, I hope. I glance back over my shoulder and I see the wood of the lane tear violently away from the floor, sharp spikes striking out at worrying angles, and shooting through the air as it starts to peel back, rolling towards me. I try to make sure that my sneakers hit the smooth lane as flatly as possible, maximizing the surface area. I can't afford to slip. I can't afford to slip right now. The lane feels longer than it did earlier. I swear that it didn't take this long to walk down it. But the splintering floor is still tearing towards me, climbing higher and higher, getting closer and closer. Run! I call out to Lucas and he's just stood there like an idiot. Come on, we're getting out of here. Run this way. I gesture and he seems to wake up, breaking into a run and heading perpendicular alongside the row of lanes. I jump off of the last stretch of wooden flooring and stagger, but I keep my balance as it tears up violently towards the ceiling behind me. And together the robot and I run alongside the lanes as they curl and peel angrily away from their places. Onwards we go to an arch in the wall. 3 corridors lead away, but only one carries the red and yellow pattern along its bottom quarter. This is the route that I chose, and now I'm the one dragging Lucas along behind me as we sprint down it. Down through corridors and past doors and towards a raised platform in the middle of a new lobby. It seems safe for some reason, safer than the area around it at least, and so I pull us up onto it, skidding to a stop and wheezing but grinning in elation. Wow, that was wild. Did you see that? I'm seriously glad that I wore sneakers today. I'm doing so much running. The rush of endorphins is incredible. I feel so alive. The boy just folds his arms, looking at me. What? I say, standing back up to full height once I've caught my breath. Don't try and tell me that that was my fault. I just wanted to see what was down the gutters. Why? The robot asks. Well, because it's interesting. Don't you get it, Robo-Boy? This place is interesting and life is empty and boring. You don't find it unsettling in here. Lonely, perhaps. I shift from one foot to the other, indignant. I have you to keep me company, don't I? If you even count as a real person. The robot clicks and whirs, but he says nothing. There's more, he says, a little further down on the right. I lean close to him. Well, then let's go check it out. I hop down off the little platform and he follows. The air starts getting colder again, ebbing and flowing. Not quite as strong as before, but still noticeable. I glance to the robot, but he doesn't seem so concerned about it this time, and so I ignore it, shivering just a little. As we walk, I also choose to ignore the substance leaking down the walls. It's the same stuff that I found under the carpet, under the lanes. I'm sure of it, but against the dark blue of the wall, it looks more black than red. It makes me uncomfortable. It makes my arm itch. But I'm not going to let it get to me. I refuse. I'm not a child. Leaky walls aren't scary. They're not scary. We round the corner in silence and find ourselves at the back of a long hall, full of empty round tables, each surrounded by empty chairs. The lighting is low in here in all parts of the hall except for the stage, which is lit up with the bright beams of a spotlight. A lone bowling lane, wooden and shiny, is nestled against the far wall. The ceiling above it is covered in dark screens. Robo-Boy looks at me and then calmly takes a seat facing the stage. I choose to stand. There are 2 figures upon it, 2 more statues, and my stomach lurches when I realize that once again they are of Jason and Jess. It lurches for a second time when the statues move. If you've ever seen the animatronics at Disney World, the President's Show, that kind of thing, then you know how they looked. Some real uncanny valley level stuff. A distorted tune, one not dissimilar to the one played by the first arcade machine, rings out from hidden speakers, and the animatronics on stage turn to stare out at the audience. My heart beats fast and I take a step closer to Robot Boy. The statues of Jason and Jess come together. The walls leak. The music plays. They dance together awkwardly at first and then more smoothly. Jason steps closer and Jess melts under his embrace. Not literally, but the chemistry programmed into them is obvious. The music becomes more natural and more emotional, and they dance together with great ease, looking into each other's eyes. They're wearing what looks like prom clothes. I feel sick. The music builds to a crescendo and a large screen behind them, previously hidden in shadow, jumps to life. Large white text in the middle shimmers and fades in and out of focus, and then Jason leans in for a kiss and she kisses him back, holding him close, and the text becomes clear. I love you. Canned cheers and cries of celebration play through the speakers into the empty hall, and I can't take it anymore. I put my hands in my face and I start to cry, my body shaking bitterly as tears flow freely down my cheeks. The music grinds to a halt and the statues slow to an eventual stop. What is this place? I manage eventually through sobs, radiating shame. I can feel Lucas watching me, but I don't look up. Why are you doing this to me? He means something to you, does he? This boy, Jason. I look up at the robot, his form bleary through my shimmering eyes. Of course he does, you know that he does. He's perfect. He's perfect and I'm worthless. I'm nothing. I'm not worth his time. And do you recognize me, Melody? The robot asks, standing up now with soft whirs and clicks. I wipe my face. What do you mean? The form that I've chosen. Do you recognize me or do you not? I look at him and I think hard. You do look familiar, but I don't know where from. I'm a boy in 3 of your classes. I sit behind you in history. Oh, I knew that I recognized you. What's your name? What's his name? The robot cocks his head sadly. I told you, Melody, Lucas. My name is Lucas. It's the same name. Guilt washes over me. Oh, right. I'm sorry, I guess. Lucas likes you a great deal, Melody. You're on his mind at the start and at the end of every day. He loves you, or at least he thinks that he does. I snort defensively. Well, that's stupid. I'm not lovable. How could he love me? He doesn't even know me. The robot's eyes flash. Exactly, Melody, exactly. You're a hypocrite. I feel my cheeks flush bright once more. Excuse me, I retort angrily. I barely even know that this guy exists. You can't expect me to like him back if... If what, Melody? The robot version of Lucas asks, stepping closer still. Gears turn and clank softly in his neck. I quiet. If he doesn't even make the effort to speak to me. The robot says nothing, and neither do I. After a moment, he folds his arms. What indication have you ever given Jason that you want to get to know him? That's not fair, I replied quietly, my arms itching. I laugh at his jokes. That you want to get to know him, I said, not worship him like an idol. I chew my tongue and the robot Lucas speaks on. If you wanted even a chance with Jason, then you had to get over your own insecurities. You needed courage to go and talk to him. You needed to give him a chance to make a decision about you. Sure, maybe he would have decided that he didn't like you and rejected you. That was a real possibility. But you would have had closure and you could have moved on. Maybe, who knows, he might have liked you back, and you could have even tried a relationship. The robot sighs sadly and turns, tucking his chair under the table with a soft scrape, as a light in the back of the hall groans and flashes, powering down and plunging the table below into pitch darkness. Or maybe you would have realized that actually, he's not so perfect, and that the two of you were never that compatible after all. A cold shiver runs up my spine at this, the way the robot finishes his little speech. I feel all the tiny hairs on my skin stand on end, and I can't stop a sudden whimper escaping from my lips. I force a stilted and uncomfortable laugh. Lucas, you're talking in the past tense. It's not too late, right? Obviously, it's not too late. Your advice is good, I see that. I'm sorry that I didn't ask you for it earlier. Maybe it's time to try and leave this place, this bowling alley. You're not in any bowling alley, Melody. Lucas says to me quietly as the bolts and gears in one of his arms start to come loose, dropping one by one to the carpeted floor with soft thuds. You never even left your house. You're in the bathroom slumped on the floor, bleeding out against the wall. You cut too deep and you lost too much blood and you lost consciousness. The back of the robot's wrist breaks free and clatters to the floor. His fingers fall apart as the gears in his legs start to come loose too. You made your choice, Melody. Your parents won't be home for hours. It'll be too late. I can't think. I can't move. I can't breathe. I hear another light behind me go dark. No, I stutter. No, that's not right. Lucas, that can't be right. But the robot only looks back at me with pity in his eyes. It's too late, he says. No, this can't be happening. I'm not in my bathroom. I remember leaving the house. I remember the walk to the bowling alley. Lucas, please. I dash forward and I grip the boy by his shoulders, but I can feel all his joints and parts come loose under my fingers. I can feel my scars throb in bursts of intense pain. He staggers as a portion of his leg collapses into loose metal bars and gears all over the floor. I can see the walls leak heavily now, thick, viscous fluid pouring down from the cracks where they meet the ceiling. I can hear the lights go out across the hall one by one. Lucas, please, I'll talk to my parents. I'll talk to Jason, I'll talk to you. The real you. This isn't fair. It's not too late, it can't be. There was no way out. How was I supposed to escape this place? That's what you wanted, right? For me to escape. There's no way out. The robot looks into my eyes as he falls apart in my arms. There was always a way out, Melody, he says softly. You just had to look for it. And the boy's eyes go dark and I'm gripping onto nothing but clusters of thin metal bars as he crumbles into parts across the floor, his head landing with a thud and rolling up against his chair. I drop the pieces of metal and drag my fingers over my face and through my hair, the full force of my isolation, this return to total loneliness, hitting me at once like a fist to the stomach. I swivel watching the animatronic statues collapse themselves. The carpet starts to peel back at the edges. Lights clank loudly into darkness, the area below them vanishing into the void. No, it can't end like this. It just can't. And in this terrible moment, the value of my life becomes clear. I see it all, and it is too late. The screens above the lone bowling lane to my right flicker, and I watch as scenes from my own life play out across them. I see myself trying a joint with a friend at their rich parents' summer house, coughing, spluttering, and choking in fits of giggles. I see myself snuggled up in my bed reading. Rain washes gently down the window. I see myself scoring a basket in the school gym. I'm not normally very good, but the throw was mine and it won us the game. My team celebrated me as a hero. One of the screens shows myself on a walk through a local forest with my parents. My dad ruffles my hair, my mom tuts and fixes it. Another shows me watching something on TV, enamored and inspired by the story that it's telling me. I see myself whispering, sharing a secret joke in class. I see myself doing well in a test that I studied hard for. I see myself with friends at the zoo. And I see myself as a kid at 10 or 11, playing in an arcade, Dance Dance Revolution, jumping gleefully onto the arrows, laughing loudly and unapologetically. My eyes sting as tears pour steadily out and over my cheeks, as one by one the screens go dark until there's only one left. White text shimmers in the center. I love you. And then it too goes dark, and falls from its spot on the ceiling to a crash on the floor below. The lights go out, the walls leak, and the darkness approaches. I turn and run, there's nothing else left to do. On I sprint, away from the darkness that follows, deeper into the complex, through strange corridors and curious hallways. There was always a way out, you just had to look for it. I clench my fists. I turn and jump up onto a little platform, raising myself up to my full height. Gaze focused, I grit my teeth and scan the stained walls, ignoring the sounds of the failing beam lights in the distance as their violent clanks and crashes grow louder and closer. I should have asked Lucas for help. I should have asked for help. I think to myself as I carefully analyze every section of the wall as quickly, yet as thoroughly as I can. I want a way out, truly I do. I promise. I mutter out loud as I turn in a slow circle, sweat dripping down the back of my neck despite the icy chill. Please help me find a way out. A reverberating metallic crash from above echoes loud through the complex, the loudest one so far, and the area directly behind me is plunged into darkness. A sudden burst of cold wind seems to rush through the hallway, as if a great window somewhere was suddenly slammed shut, and my hair whips into my eyes as I stagger to the side. Please, I scream, desperate for something, for anything. And then I see it, partially obscured in the distance behind an outcrop of wall, above the opening to a narrow corridor. I jump down from the platform and run over to it. It is small and rectangular, glowing a faint green in the gloom, and a sob of disbelief bursts from my lungs when I realize what it is. It's an emergency exit sign. Shooting one last look behind me at the encroaching darkness, I turn and sprint onwards down the corridor beneath the exit sign, my strides long and my breath ragged as I turn corner after corner following the signs, hoping and praying that it isn't just some cruel trick. My feet slap against the floor, once a deep blue but now wet, soaked through, stained almost black from the substance that leaks from the walls, that bubbles at the edges when the carpet has sickeningly peeled back. I skid around a corner and see at the end of a long narrowed corridor a door, no different to any of the others, but there is an emergency exit sign above this one, and it glows bright. I'm going as fast as I can, but my legs ache. The adrenaline isn't enough. I feel like they're seizing up, like they're going to fail me. Please, please just a little further. I will them, focused with everything that I have on the door up ahead. The failing lights and the following darkness getting closer and closer. I'm barely keeping myself in the light. The clanking's getting closer. I'm so close though. I reach out my hand and I lean forwards, crying out. And then I slam into the door with full force, pushing through it and staggering out into the room beyond, stumbling, screaming, tripping over my own feet and crashing hard into an air hockey table. The puck's balanced on the side, clattering noisily to the floor as I fall to the ground with a loud thud. My vision flashes and throbs at the edges, but the floor is dry. That much at least is clear. I groan and roll onto my side, still panicked, my heart loud in my ears, trying not to vomit. "Hey!" I hear a gruff voice shout at me. I twist around, still on the floor, to locate its source, and I realize to my shock and relief that I'm back in the arcade. The original arcade in the bowling alley. The normal one. I'm being stared at by 4 people, 3 in green uniforms. One of them is the girl that I saw at the desk earlier. The source of the voice is a grim-faced woman, mid-mob. She rests it against the desk and turns to me, hands on her hips. "What are you doing in here, young lady? The alley's closed. Come back tomorrow, you hear?" I just stare at her, panting. I dart a glance back to the door that I had fallen through. Staff restroom. It reads on a little sign. I wince as I get to my feet, feeling a series of bruises forming, and I push through the restroom door. There is nothing in here but what you would expect. Sinks, cubicles, hand dryers, and the like. "Hey," the woman calls after me again. "Didn't you hear me? Go home." I shoot one last look around, taking it all in. It's just the same. It's the same place that I entered, I'm sure of it. And so I turn and I leave. I just push through the building's doors to the parking lot outside. The clouds are purple and the sun is setting, when I feel a hand on my shoulder. I start and jump back, spinning around to face my attacker. But it's no attacker. It's the girl from the desk, still wearing her uniform. She pulls back her hand at my reaction, her expression rich with concern. "Oh," she says. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. I hope you don't think that I'm trying to pry, but are you okay?" As the building's door closes slowly behind her, I glance over her shoulder and catch a glimpse of my own reflection in the dark glass. My hair is a mess, my eyes and cheeks are red, and the sleeve of my left arm is dark and stained. It's more than that though. It's my posture, my aura, the anxiety playing upon my face. I don't recognize this girl looking back at me, and I start to cry. The employee doesn't say anything, but she bundles me into a hug and I let her, and I sob into her shoulder for a while. Past the point of embarrassment, I just let it happen. The sun begins to sink behind the horizon and I pull back, wiping my eyes. She was kind to me. She asked me a little about my life and offered to walk me home. I declined, but she made me accept her number, writing it in pen across the back of my hand before wishing me a good night. As I began the long walk home, I thought over everything that I had seen, everything that had happened. I stopped for a while to watch a flock of birds circle and swoop. diving and flowing ever-changing patterns, silhouetted against the final minutes of the sunset sky. I watch them fly off and away to whatever it is they go as the night begins its shift, faint stars starting to appear above and all around. But they'll be back. The sun will rise again. I unlock my front door and I head into the house, up the stairs, and I push open the door to the bathroom. It's covered in blood. Down the wall against the bathtub and over the floor, and there's a trail of it leading across the upstairs hall and then back down the stairs. I think about Lucas, the robot, about one of the first things that he said to me. Sometimes a good scare can be necessary. It might be just what we need. I chew my tongue and then tie up my hair and fetch some cleaning supplies from downstairs, and I scrub. I scrub it all clean. It's not easy and it takes me longer than I would have expected, but I manage. I get the worst off, at the least. And then I sit down at my desk. I pull some paper and a pen from a drawer and I start to write. I don't know how to start at first, but once I've begun, it's easy enough to keep going. And dear Mom and Dad, and I write about what I've done. I write about why I do it. I write about how sorry I am and that I hope they don't blame themselves. I write about how I need their help. I write about how I don't want to go on like this. And for the first time, I'm starting to believe that I don't have to. When I've finished, I take it into their room and place it on their bed, and then I return to my own and lay on the floor with my hands behind my head, looking up at the ceiling. I turn to my right and I reach out an arm, gently disconnecting my phone from the charge cable. I take the headphones and I push them into my ears. Opening YouTube, I search for a particular song, an old favorite of mine, one that I haven't heard in a long time, and I let the music wash over me. My parents will be home soon, and when they return, I will be ready. I was headhunted while working as a theoretical physicist for NASA, believe it or not. It sounds like quite a downgrade to transition from studies of alternate dimensions, sitting parallel to our own, to security work. That was what I told the man on the other end of the phone, who called himself Harold Kingston. "Oh, it pays well," he told me. "It may well, but I'm just a little confused," I said. "I don't understand why on earth you would be looking to hire a theoretical physicist for the role of a security guard." "Well, that's just it, Dr. Holden. It's not a security guard vacancy per se. It's a role specifically for an academic of your talents and expertise, though we would have to discuss that in person. There are classified details which cannot be discussed over the phone. That would most certainly make the role far clearer to you. I would like to arrange an appointment for you to meet my colleague, Dr. Thompson, and me." "Oh, I'm not sure," I said. I was starting to entertain the idea a little more, now that I understood Mr. Kingston hadn't mistakenly phoned me up. It had been intentional. His organization had need of physicists. They had need of experts in all manner of research fields, apparently. But I wasn't too keen on leaving my career behind for an opportunity that still seems so vague. "The salary is triple what you're currently earning," Mr. Kingston added. I laughed. "You know how much I make?" "Well, of course, I handpicked you." I wasn't sure why that set me on edge, as I understood the concept of headhunting already. But something about the tone of Kingston's voice didn't sit well with my gut at all. "Is this a legitimate opportunity?" I asked. "Triple my salary, it sounds too good to be true." "Dye Solutions is a government-funded organization, Dr. Holden. And believe me when I tell you that the American government is extremely invested in the work that we're doing." He paused. "If you simply meet us for an appointment, you'll see all of this for yourself." Triple my salary. I told myself that I would be a fool to not at least meet the man and hear what he had to say. He forwarded the details to my email and I went to the specified location. Seeing the building in person did slow my rapid heartbeat, at least somewhat closer to a normal rate. It was not some back alley warehouse, but a multi-floored and glass-paned building. There is a large marble wedge on the main lawn, with a metal plaque affixed to its front reading, "Dye Solutions." I started to feel quite giddy as I went inside, and dreaming of the way in which a tripled salary taking me well into six figures could entirely transform my life. I didn't stop to think on what I would be doing. I just assumed it would be the same work that I had been performing for NASA. Only my harebrained ideas about other worlds might be taken marginally more seriously here, given the significant bump in pay. "Dr. Holden," I told the receptionist, a fair-haired young woman. "I'm here for the third floor," she interjected. "Room 17A. "Right, thank you." I went to the lifts to the side of her desk, impressed already by the efficiency of this place. The receptionist was so on the ball as to anticipate my needs before I'd even finished my sentence, and that had to spell good things about the running of this place. But why was there still a churn in my stomach as I awaited the arrival of the lift? I wondered, why did I still feel as I had during the initial phone call with Harold Kingston? That something about this Dye Solutions building, and perhaps even the people working for it, sat at odds with normalcy. Why was something in my very being screaming at me to run? I made it to the third floor and I was startled into the back wall of the lift as the doors opened, revealing a white-haired man standing and smiling broadly back at me. "Oh, sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to scare you, Adam. I'm Harold and we spoke on the phone." I steadied my breathing and chortled at myself and the old man joined in. "An embarrassing first impression," I said. "Oh, not at all. In fact, it might be better to get it all out of your system now." My smile faded as I exited the lift and followed the old man up the hallway. Get it all out of my system? What did he mean by that? Kingston opened the door to 17A, and he sat me at a table opposite a middle-aged woman with the beginnings of gray hair whom he sat beside. "This is Dr. Elise Thompson. I mentioned her over the phone." Elise stuck out a hand and smiled as I took it. "Pleasure to meet you, Dr. Holden. I'm looking forward to us working together in the facility." "And the facility?" I asked. "Oh, the facility will be your workspace," Kingston answered. "You'll be providing security solutions for Elise and the other members of your team, based on your findings." "My findings?" "Oh yes, we've been reading through your papers on other dimensions over the past few years. Fascinating work, Dr. Holden. Genius work, dare I say. You ought to feel quite accomplished." I scoffed. "What, working for peanuts as a glorified grunt in a cramped office?" "Yes, well, NASA didn't appreciate your talents, but we will if you choose to work for us." I must admit the salary certainly suggests that I would be appreciated. More appreciated, at least. But I'm still confused about the nature of the job opportunity. I'll be providing security solutions based on my expertise in the field of alternate realities. And that just sounds like nonsense, if you'll forgive me for saying so. Kingston and Elise chuckled. "Oh, I forgive you," he said. "It sounded like nonsense to me too when I first joined the organization 20 years ago. They told me all about the facility, but I believed none of it until I saw the place for myself. I'm going to need you to do the same, Adam. I'm going to need you to suspend your disbelief." I shrugged. "I'm an open-minded man. Clearly, you've read my papers, so that should come as no surprise to you." Kingston smiled more broadly and then looked to Elise. I told you this was the right man for the position. Well, let's give Dr. Holden the chance to decide that for himself, shall we? Elise asked. Go on, sir, give him the lay of the land. The facility, began Kingston, pausing to inhale, is another world. It sits parallel to ours. It is the type of dimension about which you have theorized for your entire career, Dr. Holden. It is real, and I want you to help study this place, bring some reason to the madness, and in turn perhaps help to protect your colleagues who are working down there. I paused for a moment. I measured my response. I could see from the faces looking back at me that Kingston and Elise were nervously awaiting my ridicule. But I didn't laugh or scoff or call them liars. And it wasn't just the staggeringly high salary that prevented me from doing so. It was logic. If they were lying, I would find out soon enough. Why go to all this trouble to intentionally tell a lie? What could they possibly gain from it? I had little money. I suppose even my middle-aged body had somewhat decent organs that these two might hack out of me and sell on the black market. But this was all too elaborate an operation to be a scam. I believed what they were telling me. I knew that much. But it didn't, of course, mean that they were right. I decided that was perhaps why they had sought me out. Perhaps I was here to crush their dreams and tell them that they had not, in fact, discovered a parallel reality. I had theorized about such things, based on studies on particles that defied current understandings of physics. But I had dealt with so many naysayers over the years that I barely believed in the concept of other worlds myself. Still though, I couldn't miss out on the opportunity of at least securing a decent salary for myself, working for this government-funded agency before it no doubt imploded, once senators in Congress realized there was no merit to funding a fantasy. Are you saying that I had the job? Should I accept now? I asked. I am, Kingston answered. And how soon will I see this facility? The old man pushed a piece of paper across the desk. As soon as you sign this, he said. And before me on the surface lay a strangely sparse NDA. It was far too limited in its number of clauses, and those clauses were worded in vaguely threatening ways, suggesting that whistleblowing would be the very last thing that I would ever do with my life. It was another red flag atop the many, many other red flags since I had first taken the phone call from Harold Kingston less than a week earlier. But I was a foolish man in his late 30s, thinking only of the sickeningly high salary and the life of finery that awaited me should I play my cards right and stretch out this work opportunity as long as was feasible. But first, I would have to play along and pretend to be impressed by whatever nonsensical evidence of a parallel universe that Dye Solutions had found and called the facility. Harold and Elise got up and led me out of the room, and I was driven madder by curiosity than I ever had been by any other scientific or personal endeavor in my life. These two had insisted that I would essentially be working security, and I had laughed at the notion. They hadn't. Am I not a little overqualified for a security role? I asked. No, answered Kingston. Not for this kind of security work. I told you, Dr. Holden, you're going to be doing more than watching surveillance footage. You're going to become the expert on the facility. We'll give you the knowledge and experience that we've spent years building, and you're going to give us your mind in return. You're here for your expertise. You'll be conducting experiments on a daily basis to ensure the safety of our teams in the various areas of the facility that we've mapped out over the past 22 years. I still don't really understand the facility that I'm supposed to be guarding, I said. How does my expertise come into play here? Oh, I suppose the word facility might be throwing you off. Kingston led us to the lift and pressed the button, and we waited quietly for a few moments. You'll understand when you see it for yourself, said Elise. And that is where you're taking me now, right? It is. I smiled. It's just a relief to know that I got the job. No, you were never at risk of failing the interview, Dr. Holden. Whether you got the job was always in your hands. Now you've signed the NDA, that's it. You work for us here at Dye Solutions. We went in the lift, and Kingston pressed the B button for the basement floor. And there's no need to be so nervous now, Dr. Holden. I'm not nervous about the job. No, but you are nervous about the facility. I frowned. That wasn't quite right, and Kingston clearly realized that. Sorry, he said. What I mean to say is that you're nervous because you don't believe in the facility. I went pale, watching the numbers on the lift screen disappear down to 1, and then 1 became B. I stammered as the doors opened. I don't. It's okay, Adam, said Elise, motioning for me to follow as she clambered out of the lift. We were all the same when we first started here. None of us believed. I followed her out of the lift alongside Kingston. So you both keep saying, it has to be seen, right? Right, Kingston replied. The pair took me down a mostly unlit hallway to a nondescript door, guarded at either side by 2 men in black security attire. Their rifles affixed to their fronts caught me a little off guard. This seemed like an excessive defensive measure, and it begged the question of what security work I would be doing. Yes, Kingston kept telling me that my job title was a little misleading in a traditional sense of security work, as my role would involve scientific studies of some kind. But here were 2 men that seemed to be doing a perfectly suitable job of securing this facility, all with the traditional method of deterring would-be intruders with firearms. Kingston nodded at the 2 men, and then opened the door onto a room. But to call it a room was a stretch. It was little more than a storage cupboard, cleared out of whatever else it had once housed, given the carpet's indents, forming the telltale lines and holes of rather ordinary shelving units or boxes. It was a disappointing room. There was nothing in there, and I almost wanted to ask whether this whole thing had been a joke all along. But I was no moron, and I didn't want to lose out on such a well-paid opportunity. This was still the initiation phase of my employment, and I feared that stepping out of line in any way might still lose me the job, no matter what they said about it already being mine. I was almost certain that this had to be some manner of test. Obviously, a cleared-out cupboard was not the facility that they had kept discussing. It clearly wasn't the space that I would be guarding, as the job was being performed perfectly well by those 2 men on either side of the open door into it. But if 2 men were really needed to look after a tiny empty cupboard, then that dampened my hopes for Dye Solutions being a reputable organization, and it certainly did not bode well for the facility being an interesting place. But then Kingston marched ahead of Elise and me, striding towards the far wall of the storage cupboard. It took him only 2 steps to cross the entire room, and then he was gone. Gone. He had vanished before my eyes. I let out a scream as I came to terms with what I had witnessed, and Elise held my shoulder and tried to settle me. It's okay, she said. It's okay, just walk through the wall. I'll be right behind you, it's safe. I spent a minute or so collecting my breathing, and Elise did pressure me again. She stood there silently holding my shoulder as if to steady my footing and stop me from collapsing. She was absolutely giving me a moment, no doubt about that. She had once stood in that exact same position, perhaps having a panic attack much like my own as she came to terms with the fear gripping her entire body and mind. And she and I certainly couldn't be the only ones to find ourselves in this predicament. Kingston had been there too by the sounds of it. He had mentioned other colleagues in the facility. The facility. Was that what lay behind the wall? I hated myself for that pondering question, because it meant that I was coming to terms with something that ought to have been impossible: a man walking through a wall. And then I thought of what Kingston had said about the facility being another world. Dye Solutions was looking for the best of the best in all scientific fields. They were looking for theoretical physicists such as me. They were dealing with a realm of science beyond public understanding. Whatever I had just witnessed was not a feat of magic, but a science problem of some kind. It wasn't impossible. I just didn't understand it yet. Maybe it had something to do with parallel realities, or maybe it didn't. But either way, I had been brought here to find out. The staggeringly high salary made sense. I summoned a deep breath and walked forwards. Passing through the wall felt like breaking a pool's surface. It was the only proof I had that this wall was not some holographic trickery set up by my new Dye Solutions colleagues to play a practical joke on the new hire. Of course, I still told myself that there could be a hoax or a scam at play, even if I hadn't quite pieced it together yet. But what I saw on the other side of that wall put all my doubts to bed. Ahead of me stood Harold Kingston in an endless hallway. Whether it was truly endless or not remains an unanswered mystery to this day, but I knew the distant horizon was a pinprick, where the walls and ceiling and carpet met at a center point. This hallway stretched for miles. I was sure of it, and that surely ruled out this all being some elaborate hoax, for I couldn't see why the government would fund Dye Solutions to dedicate so much time and so many resources to building a gargantuan underground place. Yet somebody clearly had built it. This place. This strange place. "Welcome to the facility," Kingston said. Dr. Elise Thompson emerged at my side, having slipped through the wall behind me. "Hurts your eyes, doesn't it?" she asked meekly, having lost all the confidence that she had in our conversation on the other side of the wall. You'll get used to it." "It hurts my ears more," I said. "What is that noise?" An obnoxious buzz came from all around. It seemed to ooze from the far distance of this infinite hallway, stretching far past the outer limits of the Dye Solutions building, ridding me of the notion that this was all some elaborate physics trick. But it also oozed from the odious yellow wallpaper at either side of the hallway patterned with arrows, and it oozed from the similar yellow carpet below our feet, with a sour smell and an eclipse of moss swelling in the air around a clump that they had chewed out. But Kingston's thumb jabbed up at the fluorescent lights wedged into the gray ceiling tiles overhead, and humming like 1,000 shrieking bees, it certainly seemed that the buzz was coming from them, for the shrieking sound poured the loudest out of each ceiling light that we walked beneath, but the sound was coming from all around. It was oozing out of junctions that we passed on our left and right, spilling out into other rooms and equally infinite corridors. There were things in the depths of this place, the facility creating the awful noise, I realized. I wanted to tell Kingston that I was talking about more than the shrill sound from the fluorescents. I was talking about the all-encompassing wall of sound, like untold people screaming from all directions of this ceaseless place. But I was too afraid of his answer, because I was sure nothing in this place would make sense, and it was why I was so sure that Dye Solutions had not built it. The absurdist architecture of the facility was enough to drive me to near lunacy within minutes. We turned left and right and left again, down maddening hallways of walls standing at odd angles to one another, and strange ceilings that tilted precariously to one side, and even a cupboard built into the floor at one point. There came a muffled sound from beneath it, and I came to a stop before it, staring down at the wooden doorway built into the carpet. Its doorknob rattled and I jolted backwards. "Move," said Kingston. "Now." I didn't need to be told twice, and judging by how hurriedly Elise and Harold pushed downwards, this was again no joke. We scurried down more lefts and rights until I was sure that I wouldn't be able to find my way back without them. But I was just glad to be away from that horrid cupboard in the floor, and whatever thing lay in wait on the other side of it, rattling its handle and praying for somebody to let it out to the other side. It. I don't know why I was thinking of it as an it. I don't know why I was thinking of the facility as some other world. It seems insane that I should have bought Kingston's story at face value, doesn't it? But you weren't in that place. You didn't feel it. There was something wrong with it. And I started to consider as we worked our way into its yellow depths that the facility had not been built at all. Sure, it had the appearance of the back rooms of some dated inner-city office, missing on the appropriate desks, computers, shelving units, and other corporate furnishings. But it wasn't a place that made sense, even if one were to overlook the absurd interior design. It was impossible to overlook the sheer scale of the place. It was too big. Not just too big for Dye Solutions to have built. It was too big for anyone to have built. And as the air started to feel hot and heavy upon my skin, I asked whether we ought to be wearing protective gear in this place. "Oh no, we're fine," Kingston said with a chuckle, and then he gave me an awful smile, much as he had when we stepped out of the lift, while Elise gave me one that seemed far more human and grounded. I had the sense that she hadn't been working here too long, in the grand scheme of the facility's history, and I wondered whether people working in this place as long as Kingston might be driven similarly mad. We passed down one final corridor with fluorescent lights and ceiling tiles built into its floor, and carpet built into its ceiling, and then we exited into a large room. It had a little more breathability than the other corridors, and I was thankful to see people, men and women in overall suits and lab coats, walking about the place. The room was filled with their equipment, ridding the eerie and unnatural ambience from what had likely been another yellow void before Dye Solutions had arrived in this place. "Now these will be your working quarters," said Kingston, as he pointed to a windowed room at one side of the yellow room. Its glass panes were ever so slightly off, sitting not quite horizontally in the wall. And that told me this room had been designed by the maker or makers of the facility, rather than Dye Solutions. You see, Dye Solutions had a human touch to their work, and I knew the difference between the two. One gave me nausea, and the other gave me a little respite. But I couldn't stop thinking about that cupboard a few hundred yards back. "Oh, what was that under the floor?" I asked. There was knocking and rattling, and "It'll be far from the strangest thing you see in here," interrupted Kingston. "But it's the sort of thing you'll be keeping an eye on, Dr. Holden." I sighed. "Right, security work. But there's a reason you hired me in particular, right? You think my scientific expertise will come in handy with understanding this place?" This other world," Kingston said. I didn't want to agree with him just yet, but my gut already did. But the logical cogs in my head were trying desperately to explain it all, perhaps to keep me from screaming or passing out, for we weren't built to understand such things as other worlds. I was a theoretical physicist. Theoretical. I was never supposed to see one of my parallel universes, about which I had written so many papers in reality. I had never truly believed. Now I did. Kingston left me with Elise, who took me into our office and showed me the ropes. On a monitor were the camera feeds of an elaborate surveillance system, keeping tabs on all the rooms mapped out by Dye Solutions, and in documents strewn messily about the desk were the beginnings of scientific ideas from the previous physicist who had been working on coming up for explanations for the physical anomalies in the various rooms. "The walls shift," explained Elise, pointing at the documents. "And that was what Dr. Peter Accrington believed. He's the one I'm replacing." She nodded and continued, pointing at the documents again. "Layouts change daily, sometimes hourly. There are strange forces at play. I feel it already, I said. In the air. This isn't Earth. I don't feel right here. Oh, I'd say that feeling gets better, but it doesn't, Elise said. And you'll see more anomalies that make it harder and harder to believe there's a scientific explanation for all this. But you're the physicist, not me. What sort of things did this Dr. Accrington see? I asked. Oh, gravity sometimes plays by different rules, she said. And sometimes employees working in these facility rooms find that they don't need to eat or drink water for days. People have died on the job in a myriad of ways over the past 20 years. That's why minds like yours are so important, Adam. Dr. Thompson, I mean. The previous man in your role, Accrington, thought that there must be some explanation for all this, and spent years trying to make sense of it all, as he thought we could do a better job of protecting the team if we could learn to predict this, while unpredictable plays. He always said we needed more minds that can make sense of these unearthly laws of physics. He was getting close to an answer, he claimed. But Elise paused. He went missing while exploring a room in the northeast wing. It's an expanse of holes and a carpeted floor leading to black pits that, well, it might harbor all sorts of horrors. My eyes widened. He fell down one of them. He died on the job. What had I signed up for? We don't know, Elise said. The camera feed never showed what happened to him in that room. He entered it but then just vanished. You'll come to see that things in this place make no sense, Dr. Holden. Or the man-made instruments we use are just inept at making sense of them. She tapped the monitor. I nodded. Well, we're operating in a new realm of science. I shook my head, scolding myself for talking like them. Theoretically. Of course, Elise smiled. Scientific skepticism is crucial. Listen, I believe you. I believe there's something not right about this place. I believe that it seems infinite, and maybe it wasn't built by dissolution, and maybe the air and the design and everything else seems wrong. But that doesn't mean there's not a rational explanation. Elise repeated herself. Well, of course. I sensed she was holding back. But, well, I thought the same when I started working here 2 years ago, she said. I'm a different person now. This place doesn't just change its design each and every day. It changes people too. I wasn't so sure about that, but I agreed to do my best to fill the role of Dr. Accrington. I agreed to study this place and carry on the physicist's work of trying to understand the patterns of the rooms so as to better protect the team. I asked why she hadn't stepped into the role, and she explained that she was a doctor of chemistry. She served a very different purpose down there. Every crew member had an individual purpose. Mine was security, and come to understand the patterns of the rooms. Dr. Accrington was sure the facility could be broken down into its constituent parts and turned into something predictable, and then no more crew members need ever get lost or go missing again, even when exploring new and unmapped areas of the facility with unprecedented dangers. I looked over Accrington's many notes. Within them were a ton of scribblings from the mad scientist I feared I was destined to become. And I knew very early into my employment that I had made a mistake, but there was no way back. The NDA had made it quite clear that this was a job for life. To leave in anything other than a body bag was an impossibility that terrified me into compliance. I spent those early weeks watching team members explore various rooms, some already mapped and others newly discovered. They were collecting air samples in the case of Elise's subteam, or digging away carpet and wallpaper to see what lay beyond. And as the days went by, I saw what Elise had promised. Walls in the facility would shift and change. Objects would phase in and out of places. In one room, a chair would sometimes slip through a wall, but return to its original spot 12 hours later. I saw what the previous physicist had meant. There were patterns to be observed, and science is nothing but making sense of observable patterns. But this was, of course, nothing like the theoretical papers on parallel dimensions that I had written over the past decade. I had spoken on particles behaving in peculiar ways, of course, but to see it with my own two eyes was quite another thing. The more I tried to explain, the less that I understood. I articled hypotheses about quantum entanglement and submitted them to Kingston, and he told me to keep working towards understanding the predictable nature of the rooms. Mostly, I simply tried my best to catalog the repeating anomalies I noticed in the data, so as to better warn my colleague of the dangers they faced in certain rooms and hallways. I saved one man from falling through a temperamental patch of carpet, and I helped one young woman navigate through a hallway with different gravitational fields along its length. But accidents happened. Thankfully, they were always whenever I wasn't on shift, but referring to them as accidents never made them any less horrifying to my ears. People were going missing, and usually the most nervous and unstable on the team. "Oh, they got scared off and quit," was always Kingston's explanation. "We'll track them down." But I didn't believe that. I didn't think that they had quietly resigned and hid away in the real world. I thought they were stuck in the facility somewhere. It was after 6 months and several more disappeared colleagues that I started recommending the hazmat suits. The commonality in the lead up to every disappearance was erratic behavior, and my working hypothesis was that the air of this facility was different from ours back in the real world. On the other side of that wall into the dye solution storage room. Elise had already been studying air samples for years, of course. She told me that they knew they were missing something, but the data wasn't helping them out. The air contained oxygen, nitrogen, argon, carbon dioxide, and other trace gases. But those gases were like none on Earth. This was, for the most part, the same as our air back in the real world. But there was something in there which made no sense. It wasn't some particulate or pollutant, as we might get back in our normal atmosphere, but something for which the machines of dye solutions couldn't understand. And I was keen to test out whether correlation and cause might marry after all. The disappearing colleagues were always long-term employees. They were all people who had spent around 5 continuous years working in the facility, judging by my cross-reference data. We were inhaling something that was driving us mad. I didn't want to overstep my realm of scientific inquiry, but Elise thankfully agreed with me. We petitioned the hazmat suits and Harold Kingston begrudgingly agreed, and what we found certainly supported my data. Workers' mindsets certainly improved after donning the hazmat suits with oxygen tanks. I certainly had far more mental clarity afterwards, but Kingston always refused to wear one himself. He talked about how he had spent 20 years working in the facility, and he hadn't gone mad and disappeared into its depths. He said that disproved my hypothesis, and that I would see. Those employees were safe and sound somewhere in the real world, and his men would find them. Of course, I found it debatable that Harold Kingston was fine. Something about the man had unsettled me since our very first meeting. He was an uncanny chap. Was that just his nature, or had he been changed after 2 decades of inhaling the facility's air? I wasn't sure. It was after a year of working down there that it happened. Elise and Harold went missing. I hadn't been on shift when it happened, so I scoured the footage and found that Elise and Harold had simply vanished into thin air in the room of holes, where Dr. Accrington and so many other dye solution employees had disappeared over the decades. And just as had been reported with Dr. Accrington's disappearance, Elise and Harold did not trip and stumble down one of those holes. They simply ceased to be. They were on the cameras as our boss led her into the room, and then they were both gone. And that was when, as I studied the camera feed around the time of their disappearance, I noticed something almost imperceptible. 2 of the holes had darkened into absolute blackness, as if they were no longer full of shadows, but an absence, or perhaps I realized it was quite the opposite. Two people had vanished into thin air. Two holes had darkened with their swallowed souls. I was starting to sound mad myself, so I checked the oxygen tank on my hazmat suit, found that it was fine, and put my face in my hands. I wept for Elise. She and I had become close, too close perhaps. I should have maintained a degree of professionalism and separation. I realized in that moment that I had fallen in love. Fool that I was. So I got to my feet and went out to the room of holes, watched by a few timid colleagues from the doorway. None were keen on stepping foot in that room, which had caused 3 of their colleagues to vanish already. They looked at me as if I were driven to insanity by that strangeness in the air, which had affected their coworkers, but it was Elise who had driven me to this insanity. It wasn't some sense of justice. It wasn't some hero who would have bravely gone in search of any fallen colleague. It was Elise. I had to save her. I wasn't thinking clearly. I don't remember fetching a rope or having any sort of plan as to how I would venture down one of the black holes. The room made the decision for me. My vision filled with blackness, and I was falling, tumbling down a void, hearing the screams of the dye solutions workers tumble down after me. And then I was lying softly against a hard floor. I had not clattered to it, I had drifted to it softly, as it plucked from one place and laid gently in another. I rose to my feet and found wet tiles beneath, stretching towards a pool that stretched off around a corner, like those maddening yellow hallways up above. But this place was different. Was it still the facility? It had to be, because it gave me that same feeling of wrongness. Now it was a mirage of a swimming center rather than an office space, but elements of that facility above had seeped in. I saw a hallway of yellow carpet leading off from the tiles behind me, and so I followed it. It was not a route picked out carelessly or at random. There was a trail of wet footprints across the carpet. It had to be a sign of Harold Kingston and Dr. Elise Thompson. I followed this wet trail of footprints across the carpet and into another room, covered in tiles, across its floor, walls, and ceiling, with only scant light spilling inside from fluorescents in the carpeted hallway. I didn't step into the room. I was frozen in fear to the spot, because there was a man standing in it, a man that I recognized. "Harold," I whispered. Kingston was standing and staring at the tiled wall facing away from me, and I realized there was a thin sheet of water trickling down those tiles from a gap between the wall and the ceiling. My boss seemed to be mesmerized by it at first, but then I couldn't see his face. For all I knew, he was staring blankly at the tiles ahead, not a thought in his head at all. "Where's Elise?" I asked. "Sir." He finally turned and I screamed. Kingston's face was gone. The old man clawed at the blankness where his facial features should have been, now covered in flat and pale skin, and he started to stumble blindly towards me. But as he went, his stumbling stopped and he found a calm and measured stride. He was walking directly towards me. Even without eyes, he could find me. I turned and ran left, followed the carpet to a hallway of slick tiles, which nearly brought me flat to my face as I skidded across them. There were fewer lights with every turn I made, but I was guided instead by occasional smears of blood on the tiled walls of the corridors. A trail of handprints led me deeper into the dark. And then I came to the worst of the rooms. Lit by a solitary ceiling fluorescent was a pool in the center of another tiled room. And in that pool was a young woman, her head being forced underwater by a nude, bald man. "Elise!" I cried out, and the man turned to face me, revealing that he was like Kingston, with no features on his face. He was an undressed toy doll, creating friends to join him. That was the most sense that my logical mind could make of it all. and as he let Elise come up for air, I saw her lips drip off from her face, as if washed away by the water. She was trying to scream, judging by the tautness of the flesh on the bottom half of her face, and the wild look in her eyes as she turned to look my way. And those eyes were starting to drift down her face too, washed away by whatever the water had done to her, as if she were a smudged watercolor portrait. The nude, faceless being took hold of Elise again and giggled, muffled behind its face flesh as he dunked her under the water again. Like a child playing a game, and she was his toy doll after all. I saw her nose and eyes drift up to the surface in bubbles and float away, watching me as they disappeared into the darkness of the room. There came a hand on my shoulder, and I was spun to look into the faceless face of what had once been Harold Kingston. He was what Elise was about to become. The old man's lower jaw stretched, screaming something at me as I screamed back at him with my lips still intact. I think he told me to run, but regardless, that was what I did. Whether Elise was beyond saving or not, I didn't intend on staying to find out. I wanted to live. I wanted only in that moment to live. "I'm sorry," I croaked at her, turning on my heel. I scampered through the maze of tiled floors and carpets, and desperate at first for a way out, but then desperate simply to get away from the wet slabs of flesh against the tiles in the distance. That nude thing, which had stolen the faces of Elise and Harold, it was coming for me next. And I wasn't sure if there was any way back to the facility floor above. I was trapped down there. I made it back to the initial tiled room beneath the room of holes, expecting to find nothing but a blank ceiling overhead, but instead looking up into light at the ceiling to find a rope that had been lowered down towards me. I grabbed it and started to slink my way up. My head started to ache and pound as I ascended into the blackness. These tunnels between floors had never been built to be traversed by mortal things. Perhaps I finally accepted that they had never been built at all. Building a thing was a notion reserved for the real world. The rooms abiding by whatever fractured laws of physics governed the facility as a whole were places that simply existed. There was no method to the madness. That was my final scientific conclusion. I felt a tug on the rope as I climbed and looked down to see a fleshy creature following me up it. With a scream, I hurried my ascent, seeing the mask of a hazmat suit above, and weeping behind my own mask as I envisioned this creature dragging me into the depths and drowning me to wash away my face. But I made it. I made it to the room at the top and was heaved out of the hole that I had climbed into by two men in hazmat suits. They screamed alongside me as we saw the nude, faceless shape scuttling up the rope nearing the room. We had given it a way out of its den. But I snatched the rope from my savior's hands and tossed it down the hole, watching the creature plummet to its depths, back to the pool rooms where Elise and Harold were fated to forever wander alongside it, faceless and forgotten. I left Eye Solutions shortly after that, and I've been in hiding ever since. They threaten me even now that they'll end my life for leaving them behind, given all the classified knowledge that I have. But they don't terrify me anywhere near as much as that thing, and its created things down in the tiled depths of the facility. I have nightmares of Elise finding me, faceless and furious that I abandoned her, and then washing my face away so that I suffer forever alongside her.